The man single-handedly beat up an entire group in this dark alley. The choking one affirmed to him that they executed the orders of Kim Dong-yi, the manager of the Black Death Branch. With that, the masked man struck his victim with a terrifying punch to the gut, leaving him to fall defeated to the ground. But as the man began to think about the manager in charge, he suddenly felt alerted, quickly disappearing from the scene as 4 new presences made their entrance. Just like that, the 4 agents in black arrived at the crime site. Yujiho, who was his second year at the Martial Police University, pointed out how they just missed the action. Park Jita, who was a 4th year in the same university, asked the team leader if they should begin tracking after seeing how recent the events were. But the team leader of the Martial Brigade External Affairs, Jang Sung-woo, affirmed that their target must have predicted the outcome and thus created a safe passage for his escape. Just then, the 4th agent tried to get her superior's attention. The second year named Kim Boa informed Jang Sung-woo of the storage being filled with the product she held in her hand. Jang Sung-woo felt alerted upon opening the box, as it contained PM, which is also known as Power Enhancement Medicine, leaving Yujiho confused. So the team leader explained to the girl on her first case how this enhancing drug was recently being used by martial artists to throw Miriam into chaos with their crimes. After hearing this, the intrigued university student was determined to uncover all PM hideouts. Park Ji-tae theorized that this was an internal fight between the underworld forces of Miriam for dominance over the PM market after seeing that only their dantians were broken, which seemed logical to the man in charge. With that, Jang Sung-woo decided to rejoin his team after reporting their discoveries to the higher-ups as he ordered his men to inspect the perimeter and collect all of the illegal PM. Just like that, the 3 agents began executing the orders. Park Ji-tae was curious, as his 2 colleagues should be assisting with a freshman orientation, which Kim Boa forgot about, while Yujiho revealed that she didn't care about the orientation. According to Kim Boa, the younger brother of Jang Sung-woo named Jang Ha-koo was a martial prodigy who had just entered their school. Yet to her surprise, Yujiho informed them that the said martial genius was only the second strongest after a student from a countryside dojan. With that, she began to tease the girl who supposedly didn't care, making her confess that she only knew since it was shocking to learn that the strongest wasn't someone from the capital. Kim Boa then asked her friend about the genius's identity, to which she affirmed that he was known as Kang Tae-in. Meanwhile, the said man in question was approached by someone as he was lost in his thoughts. The person asked him if he was the top freshman of this year. Kang Tae-in happily confirmed before presenting himself as the number 1 of the 34th generation. Just then, the student decided to reveal his true intentions, as he tried to strike our hero out of nowhere, who immediately intercepted his attack, before lowering the attacker's hand to his surprise, turning his sneak attack into a simple handshake. The young man apologized for using his left arm for a handshake before asking the student about his name. The baffled student introduced himself as Lee Gaejuk to Kang Tae-in, who countered him with terrifying ease. Our hero then asked for his senior's care as it was his first time in the capital, making him realize that he came from the countryside. With that, Lee Gaejuk began to explain everything to our protagonist with great anxiety and incredible speed. Yet as the student kept on talking, our hero turned his gaze to the portrait of the first generation. Kang Tae-in was determined to find his father after finally becoming his junior, when suddenly, an announcement was made asking for Jang Ha-koo, causing chatter among the many students as Jang Ha-koo was the genius cadet, son of the head representative who had placed at the exam. This fuss made our hero intrigued by the young man, so Lee Gaejuk explained how Jang Ha-koo was a prodigy and the second son of Jang Jin once again to him. But just then, the student realized that Kang Tae-in's first place meant that he was victorious against the great genius, when suddenly he arrived. With that, Jang Ha-koo entered the scene. The genius knew very well that the day he interacted with the first place for the first time was the day that marked the start of a destined rivalry. That night, a luxurious car traveled the road. The men in the back asked the chauffeur about the power enhancement drug. With that, the man explained to the higher-up that despite the previous drug having side effects on the consumers, this one should show great results. The blonde one took a good look at the pill, but little did they know their secret conversation was being overheard by the menacing masked man who watched it all from the top of a building. The chauffeur then politely bowed down after exiting the leaving car, with a smiling grin on his face, which didn't escape the mask's piercing red eyes. And so he jumped off the building, face first as he was ready to strike. Meanwhile, inside a luxurious building, the goons were discussing how the branch manager was able to get the promising redevelopment case, when suddenly the masked terror broke the window and barged into the room right in front of them, before launching 2 mysterious projectiles, hitting the first man while the second managed to dodge. With that, the second man charged at the masked menace while trying to land a clean kick, but the masked one quickly intercepted it, before grabbing the man's face, spinning him, and finally slamming him into the floor. With that, 4 more foes arrived, being intrigued by the noise. At the sight of the intruder, the first 3 charged headfirst at him. Yet this wasn't enough to intimidate him, as he used some sort of mysterious power in order to dash towards the first target, and immediately strike his face with his knee, before using acrobatics in order to close up the distance between him and goons number 2 and 3, hitting the first with a flying kick to the neck, and the second on the face. At the same time, with that, the bald giant pointed out how worthless his colleagues were, as he charged at the masked man determined to break his body. But the man quickly dodged his punch, before sneaking up and grabbing him by the shoulder, doing a quick jump, followed by an instant backflip to lower the man's face, in order to drop it on his knee in a quick moment, leaving the man in great pain. But the masked man wasn't done just yet, as he delivered a powerful flying kick to the man's face, sending him flying through the door he was trying to protect, allowing the masked man to enter, only to find 4 more foes waiting for him. This piqued the interest of the man in the chair, while the person was left beaten up by his men and lying on the ground. The unjust sight triggered the masked man. 2 of the men mocked the mask for his attire and for walking in alone, while the branch manager Kim Dong-hee ignored him before peacefully resuming his call. With that, the muscle man tried to smash the intruder for his insolence, but the masked menace quickly dodged the groundbreaking strike, before deciding to counterattack with a powerful karate chop. Just like that, the masked menace sent the bulked man flying into the wall, making his 2 colleagues feel alarmed. With that, both of them charged at the intruder while asking him about the origin of his family, but the man who decided to stick to his silence quickly dodged the opponent's punch, before counterattacking with a knee drop to the top of the head. With that came the turn of the second one, who aimed to strike the masked man with a kick aimed at the face. Yet it was the mask who ended up kicking the blonde delinquent. Kim Dong-hee excused himself from Manager Ko after witnessing this sight, before jumping out of the way of the blonde delinquent who was thrown in his direction. With that, the manager demanded that the mask unveil his identity. Yet our hero ignored him, having recognized his target as the 35-year-old Kim Dong-hee, the branch manager of the Black Death sect. This man was also the main reason behind the good and evil factions being thrown into chaos, according to the mask, who was determined to make the manager pay for his crimes. This shocked Kim Dong-hee, before consuming a power enhancement pill and pointing out how the mask overestimated his chances, leaving him alarmed. With that, the power of the manager quickly began to rise, as he was now ready to take on his mysterious masked foe. With that, the branch manager tried to land the first strike, but the masked man quickly dodged. Our hero kept on parrying and dodging with great ease, before rounding his hands around the man's arm, firmly grabbing it, and delivering a powerful knee strike into Kim Dong-hee's guts, which sent him flying through the air. But the branch manager quickly managed to get a hold of his footing and secure a safe landing. This greatly angered the branch manager, who asked the masked man about his opinion regarding their sect. But the man ignored his question and ordered the darkness of Wudang to be evaporated. With that, the Masked Avenger unleashed the powerful attack known as the Phantom Spirit Wave, resulting in a huge explosion that piqued the citizens' interest. This caused the crowd to grow anxious and confused, before creating a movement of panic where all aimed to flee the scene. With that, one martial artist remained standing. The masked victor gazed upon the topless, defeated man. He looked at him with his cold, merciless eyes before calmly walking away from the corpse that he left behind. The peaceful next day dawned on the countryside. A woman was chopping wood in the morning, but the lady used no tool as she split the logs with her bare hands. Just then, she was called by her son, who was none other than Kang Tae-yan, asking for breakfast, which annoyed his mother as her son was only thinking with his stomach. But the boy affirmed that he needed food in order to survive. A concerned and suspicious look appeared on the woman's face. The mother then proceeded to ask her son about his late arrival last night, to which the son nervously claimed was due to him making a video. This triggered the lady, as she speculated that Kang Tae-yan was posting his martial arts skills on YouTube once again, but the young man affirmed that he only did it for the name of the dojang. Yet the woman couldn't care less, as martial art wasn't something for one to show off on the internet. But Kang Tae-yan affirmed that he only meant to advertise, stating that such things would become impossible once he joins the martial police brigade. With that, the woman angrily resumed her bare-handed wood chopping before asking her terrified son to call his grandfather for breakfast. And so Kang Tae-yan went on his way. Our hero was left bothered, as despite all of his efforts to save the dojang, seeing how he only gets his mother's scolding in return, when a small voice referring to him as Big Brother appeared. This bothered the protagonist, as he demanded to be referred to as instructor. The little girl affirmed that they were doomed. Kang Tae-yan, who was shocked by the young one's salty tongue, asked her about the matter in question. The woman screamed that she wanted to get out, as after 6 months her daughter still hasn't learned to make a proper stance before accusing them of being con artists. But the old man only replied with a laugh, which only further triggered the woman. Seeing how light the problem was, the boy asked the young girl to speak more politely from now on, but the student affirmed that he risked being jobless. With that, Kang Tae-yan approached the angry mother, before asking to have a word with her. The protagonist was then left triggered after the woman recognized him as her daughter's perverted big brother. But the hero decided to correct her, reintroducing himself as the hidden spirit instructor, before asking the woman if she was aware of their current situation. Seeing how all tiles were in pieces as the wind echoed through the building, our hero speculated that the mother must be underestimating their dojang. Kang Tae-yan said that this was in fact a symbol of their history, but the students inside knew very well that this was nothing but a stream of lies. With that, our hero decided to reveal to the intrigued woman the reason behind their sect prospering in the countryside, seeing how many of its elder students were able to enter the Martial Police University, leaving the woman impressed. The young man then claimed to be the best student of the 34th generation. And so, in order to demonstrate the might of their school, Kang Tae-yan decided to showcase their dojang's secret move. With that, the boy unleashed the Phantom Spirit Wave, resulting in a great explosion that startled the woman, but left the master silent and completely unimpressed. The wave was so powerful that it completely obliterated the targeted tree. Kang Tae-in claimed that the wave was a move exclusive to their dojang and that enrolling into the Martial Police University would be easy for Yi-jae if she learns it, exciting her mother. The lady wanted her daughter to learn this move, but according to the instructor, this would only be possible in a special lecture. With that, the woman demanded her daughter be immediately registered in the said lecture. Just like that, both mother and daughter left the dojang happy. Meanwhile, on the way back, the master decided to face the instructor about his school's secret weapon. The old man began to scold the young one for his reckless use of the Phantom Spirit King martial arts. Kang Tae-in interrupted his grandfather in order to show him something, which was none other than a photo of Yu Ji-ho. But from the old man's reaction, Kang Tae-in speculated that his distraction failed, yet the old man was in fact very pleased. Just then, the mother began to scream at them in order to call them in. The old man stated that he was okay with the girl as long as she doesn't behave like the boy's mother. And so the family sat down to eat. Kang Tae-in was surprised to see how early his mother ordered the martial uniform, but the woman affirmed that the first student should be the first one to receive his uniform. This pleased our hero, as his mother began to see him as a studious person. Just then, the news occurred that a terrorist attack happened at night in Seoul, which the martial police were still investigating. Kang Tae-in, as it was revealed that the manager of the evil Murim faction's Black Death sect was slain. The mother then looked at her choking son and began to suspect him as the terrorist in question. An uneasy look appeared on the boy's face, but just as he was about to speak, the doorbell suddenly rang. Kang Tae-in rushed to open the door, suspending the discussion with his mother to another time. The protagonist opened the door to find two police officers who seemed to be looking for him. The first officer apologized for the bother and claimed that they had to escort him to the police station. The intrigued young man asked for the reason behind this sudden arrest. And so the second officer revealed that he was in fact a likely suspect regarding the culprit of last night's attack. Kang Tae-in interpreted this situation as a bunch of rubbish, so the annoyed policeman affirmed that the details would be uncovered once in the police station. But his partner apologized for the inconvenience and revealed that they only wanted to check his background, having received reports about his videos on the internet. When suddenly, the man found the claws of a deadly woman on his neck. The arrival of the mother immobilizing the police officer shocked the boy, who tried to explain in panic that these two were only police officers who wished to interrogate him. The second officer claimed that the mother was in the way of their duty. Kang Tae-in then reassured the lady that he would be returning shortly. A great flow of energy began to circulate in the mother's hand as her son entered the car, but quickly calmed down as the car left, leaving her concern for her child, a concern shared by the grandfather as well. Kang Tae-in felt relieved to have escaped a disaster, and stated that the officers should be grateful as he only complied for their sake. When suddenly, our hero found himself being hit in the neck, leaving him confused. Kang Tae-in noticed that his body was shaking as the officer holding a special drug praised his mother, seeing how she truly terrified him. With that, the officer decided to make the boy lose consciousness, leaving him alerted. Kang Tae-in presented himself to his subscribers as an instructor in the Hidden Spirit sect, which has the largest number of students in the Martial Police University. Before using his Phantom Spirit Wave, the boy affirmed that this was the stance for this move, which was quite complicated for beginners. Kang Tae-in advised the viewers to start the beam from their hands, before showcasing it once again. The boy affirmed that despite the power reduction, the move would still be really useful in a real fight. As the video ended, the viewer began to criticize the boy, having recognized his style as the martial arts of the Phantom Spirit King. Shim Yong-byum, who was one of the 4 guardians in the Black Death sect, asked Young-gu if anyone was assigned to take care of him. Though Young-gu, who was his vassal, affirmed that Viper and Moo Da-sung were tasked with taking care of him. After a short silence, Jim Yong-byum asked the man to lower his head, before firmly grabbing it, and reminding him of his special request to not send these two into a capturing mission. So the bald man affirmed that the said target was the top student of the Martial Police University, creating a headache for the boss, who asked the vassal to call Viper and his partner in order to inform him that he will be arriving soon. Meanwhile, in a dark abandoned place where many goons were grouped, something was heading toward the wall at great speed, which was none other than our hero being tossed around. The officer then stomped on his stomach, asking him to gather his forces, but Kang Tae-in found himself in great pain. His partner asked him to use a gentler approach, seeing how they belonged to a democratic society. Kang Tae-in realized that he was unable to gather his Kai into his danchin and speculated that this was due to the injection from earlier. Just then, the man asked him not to tire himself with such things, before confirming the boy's doubts about the shot, making him unable to gather his Kai. With that, the fake officer decided to spice things up as he reached into his suitcase, only to showcase his intestinal parasites who were still alive, before explaining how these creatures could tear into one's organs and fill him with venom if they managed to enter his body. Just then, the man tried to remind Viper of their orders, yet he affirmed that he only wished to scare the boy. With that, Viper decided to get straight to the point, and asked our captured hero about the Phantom Spirit treasure. But the young man claimed that he was not aware of his whereabouts. This triggered the man, who grabbed and opened Kang Tae-in's mouth, before grabbing a parasite and reminding him that they should just use their words. With that, the creature was shoved into the boy's mouth, leaving Viper excited. With that, our hero let out a great tortured scream. Viper then decided to proceed with the second question, and asked Kang Tae-in about the place he learned the Phantom Spirit King's martial arts from. But our hero denied once again, earning him a stomp in the face. Moon Dasong affirmed that since the boy uses this martial art, he surely didn't grasp its meaning, as he dug the boy deeper into the wall. The fake officer felt great anger. In the past, Moon Dasong aimed to be a decent martial artist. His childhood was filled with joyful memories of him and his comrades trying to reach their dreams, until the day one man crushed their hopes. Without any justification, the boy's comrades were murdered by the Phantom Spirit King. As wherever this man went, carnage and slaughter followed. A great number of martial artists charged at the man all at once, but the Phantom Spirit King cracked a smile before slashing everything in his way, leaving the scene with the martial artists shredded to pieces as they let out screams of agony. That day, Moon Daesung realized that this man was no human, but a phantom. This image was forever burned in the boy's soul. Back to the present, the traumatized man was ready to hit the boy as he tried to impersonate his comrade's murder, leaving Kang Taein in great pain. Just then, someone called him out. Viper reminded his partner of the orders they were given. Moon Daesung apologized, stating that he was overtaken by memory, but Viper reassured him that he was well aware of his pain, before wondering if the man in charge would recognize the beaten-up target. But just then, the man noticed. The protagonist emitted a great wave of ki as he was able to get back on his feet. With that, Kang Taein's blue eyes were filled with a red anger. Viper praised the young man's determination despite having consumed an intestinal parasite. After examining himself, Kang Taein theorized that the drug was the reason behind his ki disappearing. But just then, he felt it. A great pain coming from his stomach. Viper then pointed out that the boy would be powerless as long as the intestinal parasite dwelled within his body. Our hero felt pain through his entire body, leaving him no other choice, as he blocked his own ki as a temporary solution, in order to concentrate the remaining true ki acquired from his training and battle with a single use of his external energy. Moon Daesung praised the young man for his determination, but just as he was about to point out the protagonist's weakness without ki, the martial artist found himself getting sucker punched in the face. Just like that, the genius sent his opponent crashing through the wall, leaving Viper utterly shocked. The man couldn't believe that someone with a parasite dwelling within his body was able to defeat this specific Moon Daesung with a single strike. Meanwhile, all the goons rushed to check on Moon Daesung before charging all at once at the boy in order to avenge him. Our hero felt a great pain. It managed to strike the first opponent, knocking him up into the air with a single kick. The damage to his organs was getting harder to process. Just then, the second henchman charged at the genius. In a flash, our hero punched him in the chin, before kicking the third and finally striking the fourth. But the bulky henchman number 3 affirmed that the genius attacks had no effect on him, before breaking his bat on the young man's back, who was left struck by immense and horrible pain. With that, the genius martial artist gave him a gaze full of anger and hate, leaving the big man struck by fear. Our hero then managed to grab the goon's face, before mercilessly slamming him into the ground. Kang Taein then declared that he shall fight anyone that stands up to him. Viper realized that he underestimated our hero, who was fighting with his external energy only due to his youth, yet he was still faithful in the deadly venom of his creature, who should be now bringing the boy to his knees at any moment. Viper decided to strike at this instant. Kang Taein jumped into the air, before grabbing the punk by his neck, and used him as a base for a spin kick that allowed him to strike 3 foes at once. But our suffering hero wasn't done just yet, as he slammed the man's skull into the ground. With that, the pain became more intense, as blood had been vomited on the ground. Kang Taein realized that the venom was progressing within his body, and so he focused the rest of his truth kai once again. When suddenly an armed opponent decided to seize this moment, but his stab was quickly countered by our hero, grabbing him by the neck and delivering a painful kick to his guts. Another one tried to take him from behind, but Kang Taein was quick on his feet, having instantly closed the distance between him and the weak points of his adversary. With that, the man received a clean uppercut to the face. But just then, our hero felt alerted as he sensed a blade near his head, a giant blade that he dodged at the last second, before jumping into the air and hitting the goon's head with his knee, ferociously smashing it into the ground. With that, all henchmen were beaten. But just as Kang Taein was about to catch his breath, he found himself being stabbed in the back by the final foe that he forgot about. This sneaky one was none other than Viper, who acknowledged the boy's skills. Viper revealed that this was his first time witnessing one show such ferocity after consuming a parasite, before claiming to not be a coward as this was the way of life. Before gaining some distance, Viper apologized to his superior, as he was now obligated to terminate their target. A great amount of the protagonist's blood was spilled, but just then, a great aura was released from it. A dark presence appeared behind our hero, leaving the startled and terrified Viper intrigued by its nature. Kang Taein's moves showed tiredness. Our struggling hero suddenly got closer in the blink of an eye, before demonstrating great speed. This power was the might of a phantom, which didn't escape the blindfolded lady, who resided in a mysterious location in front of a great statue. This was none other than Maho from the ancient spirit tribe. With that, the lady began to dance and chant her incantation, making the statue tremble as the fires were ignited. Just then, the man of stone began to crack, before being exploded from within by a great energy. A presence revealed itself from inside it, pointing out the phantom spirit resurfacing, with Maho, her granddaughter, confirming. The presence now had the chance to be reunited with the phantom. This presence was none other than the ancient spirit princess from the ancient spirit tribe, ready to take her revenge on the said spirit. Just then, a car arrived. The attention of the one inside was quickly piqued, as this was none other than the boss, who was shocked to see no welcome party waiting for him. Before smacking the vassal's bald head for their misbehavior, the man affirmed that their etiquette wasn't a part of his duty. With that, the annoyed man in red broke the door, only to find the room filled with their beaten-up men. Both looked confused as all underlings were beaten, when suddenly the both of them noticed something. The boss quickly closed the distance between him and the screaming man, recognizing him as Viper, who was having a panic attack. The martial artist affirmed that he saw the young man kick the bucket after feeding the intestinal parasite, yet the target was very well alive. With that, the man in red slapped his employee in order to get him back to his senses, before asking him to clearly explain the matter to him. The terrified Viper affirmed that the young man was a phantom deprived of humanity. This intrigued the man in the red suit, who quickly turned around in order to take a quick look. He then gazed in the other direction, only to find more damage. His vassal then affirmed that they didn't suffer any casualties, when suddenly he realized what had truly happened. With that, the man ordered Young-gu to contact the assassin sect, as they were now dealing with the Ghost King. According to the news, the capital was struck with another terrorist attack, with the Murim patrol squad still searching for the culprit. The terrorist attack resulted in the death of Mr. Kim, the branch manager of the death sect of the evil Murim section. The screen was then broken by a cup of tea being thrown at it by a blonde young man with blonde eyes. The said man had his feet on a tied-up man as he was surrounded by his terrified servants. He then asked for the latest update on the situation. According to the servant, only the East Branch manager was still alive, which resulted in their distribution line almost disappearing in the past days. But Sebastian, the vice chairman of the assassin sect, was more interested in his men's whereabouts while 3 precious distribution lines were being shut down. With that, none of the 4 men dared to respond as they could only tremble in silence. Sebastian then aggressively stomped on the tied-up man and asked him for the one behind his failing business. With that, the man revealed that the culprit was a single masked man. But just then, the vice chairman increased the pressure on his head, before pointing out how he invested too much of his time into this business for it to be ruined by worthless goons like him. The scared servant hesitated to speak to the chairman, before finally revealing that they just received 50 boxes of PM, making Sebastian ask for a pill. With that, the chairman tried out the new product, and instantly felt the effect of the power enhancement medicine coursing through his system. The servant explained that this prototype was blessed with an additional accumulation of internal energy and immediate effect, on top of the side effect risks being almost cut in half. Sebastian was left very satisfied, as he decided to test his new powers by punching the prisoner's head through the table. The servants were left amazed and terrified by the amazing feat, speculating that this was the fruit of the PM. Sebastian was pleased with Jeho's performance, as the medicine could be immediately put to use. The blonde man ordered his servant to restart the distribution lines, double the guards in the east, and provide the fighters with some PM. Just then, a woman entered the room stating that they received a job request from the Black Death sect. With that, the chairman headed towards the exit, stating that he would take any job as long as the employer pays. As the boss exited the room, all servants felt relieved, but were then quickly alerted as he opened the door once again, stating that they should catch the troublemaker before the end of the week, before brutally slamming the door behind him. Meanwhile, somewhere else where screams and blood were being spread, the hand quickly grabbed the dagger, before using it to stab a man in the back of his neck. The assassin then executed his swift move, before hitting his target with his elbow. With that, the man fell in front of his 3 comrades. Many had fallen to the unscratched assassin. One of the swordsmen was left shocked by the death of his comrade, but the other reassured him by stating that their volcanic sect followed the rules of eat or be eaten. With that, they charged the assassin in order to avenge their fallen comrades. But the man was left unimpressed as he adjusted his glasses, and Soki began to move. The man was able to quickly slash his opponent's feet, before trying to block the blade of the third. The man with glasses was easily able to parry the strike. The swordsman was left amazed as the assassin had blocked his katana with 2 daggers. Just then, the assassin decided to gain some distance. The swordsman tried to grasp this chance, as he attempted to stab his opponent, yet he was only met with failure, as the man pinned his sword down with his own foot, before jumping into the air and stabbing the swordsman in the back of the neck. Just like that, the last blood was splattered over the battlefield. The assassin then sheathed his dagger, when suddenly his phone began to ring. The man then quickly answered, and after a quick conversation, Hack-sun, the special grade assassin, was excited by his new target, which was none other than our protagonist. That same night in our hero's village, our hero's mom was going down the mysterious stairs. With that, she began to recall how her father arrived quickly carrying her son. The old man apologized to his daughter for arriving too late. The mother then tried to wake up her son, but the old man explained that despite his best efforts, the young man still needed further healing and that his ceiling was slightly damaged. The old man then affirmed that it was very likely that the Ghost King's seal would disappear due to Taeyeon's injuries, and so they must restore it before making him and his daughter escape, as the ancient spirit princess was soon to arrive. This shocked the woman. Her father confirmed, explaining that the woman must have located the young man when his seal was damaged. This left the woman worried about the old man, but the master reassured her and stated that he would only be repenting for his mistakes by cutting their ties to the spirit princess. With tears in her eyes, the woman agreed to submit to the old man's will. And so back to the present, she opened the door in order to enter a room filled with weapons. It hadn't occurred to her that she would once again use this specific outfit as she gazed upon the chain armor. And so she quickly put it on, tied her hair, and put on her hat before unsheathing her blade. With that, the warrior was ready as she quickly sliced through the chains. With that, the mother was now prepared to protect her child. Meanwhile, our hero began to wake up to a mysterious voice calling out his name, only to find himself in an empty void. The boy speculated it to be his missing father, making him feel overjoyed by this reunion. Taeyeon tried to ask his father about his presence here, but the man suddenly disappeared. The young hero tried to catch up to the man as his shady voice began to speak of the Ghost King treasure, as Taeyeon desperately tried to find his father. But just then, the boy noticed something that filled him with fear. A glowing red eye appeared from behind the darkness. The entity began to pity the protagonist, who was left paralyzed in fear. The entity stated that the young man witnessed something he should have never known about. This was none other than the Phantom, who was trying to become a part of the boy. Just then, the hero truly woke up, only to find himself inside a healing circle with his grandfather. The boy tried to speak, but the master forbids it, as it could reopen his wounds. Taeyeon then kept silent for a moment as he began to reflect, before addressing the old man once again. The man felt alarmed as the protagonist revealed to have dreamed of his son. Taeyeon explained that he couldn't see his father despite hearing the man calling him, and so he clenched his fist in frustration, before asking the old man if he would ever be reunited with his father. The old man thought in silence for a short moment, before asking his grandchild to listen to him with great care. At the same time, the mother stood ready on the roof. Just then, she felt an alerting energy, arriving from afar, which could only belong to the ancient spirit princess. The woman was then left in a tough spot as the treatment would last an hour, which was more time than they could spare, but just then, a chill ran down her spine, alerting her of the presence of an assassin. And so she quickly drew her sword, but Hack-sun quickly blocked with his own blade. With that, the assassin tried to gain some distance, was quickly startled by the woman who approached him as soon as he set foot on her roof. The man managed to escape the swordswoman's thrust at the last moment. Seeing how his outfit was left damaged, the assassin realized that his opponent's speed was something to take seriously. Yet the mother found her moves to be slow due to the time away from the blade. Hack-sun tried to impose a distance once again. With that, both took their stance to fight under the full moon. The assassin confessed his shock at being discovered despite suppressing his presence, which made him question the presence of such a master outside of the city. Yet the mother was more worried about the approaching entity. Seeing how quickly the enemy was getting close, the woman decided to eliminate the assassin as quickly as possible. This left the assassin triggered, as his opponent was more preoccupied by the upcoming presence with him being in front of her. And so the Dishonored One charged headfirst, bombarding our hero's mother with a barrage of slashes that she completely blocked. The woman then dodged the last cut. Hack-sun was then left startled by the woman's sudden movement, and with a jump, the man dodged the woman's blade. With that, he tried to end it all with a thrust. The assassin was finally able to land a stab, yet to his surprise, only struck the hat. The warrior managed to gain the upper ground, before slashing Hack-sun with her katana. The assassin was shocked to see that the lady had used her hat as a distraction. With that, Taeyeon's mother landed the first blood without breaking a sweat. Hack-sun began to scream in pain, realizing that he had almost lost a limb, which was a proof of the master's power. The woman grew worried of the spirit approaching them as she was left annoyed by the weak distraction. Hack-sun then revealed that he underestimated his opponent. The assassin known as the Demon of Death decided to fight with all of his might as he cracked a PM pill. Just like that, a great amount of energy began to come out of the assassin, which left the woman alerted. With that, Hack-sun was certain to measure up to his powerful opponent. The woman was now met with a new struggle. As to her, the man's energy had suddenly risen, which called for her awareness. Hack-sun then recognized his opponent's weapon as the Shadow Stream sword. The man revealed that his sect leader had warned him about the Lady of the Wunan who wielded the sword in question. According to him, the warrior is rumored to be more ruthless than the evil Murim faction, which she made great casualties of despite belonging to the Justice Murim faction. Yet one day, the Lady of the Wunang suddenly vanished, only to be now found once again in the countryside. The woman tried to take him from behind, but the assassin was able to quickly dodge, before counterattacking with a successful kick. The man then jumped back, only to charge forward at an incredible speed, leaving the lady alerted, as she managed to block the slash at the last instant. This left her in a tough situation as the opponent was mimicking her moves. Hack-sun was left very pleased by the effect of the power-enhancing medicine. With that, the woman tried to slash the assassin, only to find herself being blocked by the man's boot. The assassin then jumped into the air, before kicking the mother's head with great aggressiveness, throwing her off the rooftop. Just then, the old man felt alerted. The master prayed that his son's wife would last as long as possible, as he was now unable to move and help her. Meanwhile, the woman was shocked to see the assassin countering her fighting style. The man then pointed out how the Lady of the Wunang was overhyped. Hack-sun, who pointed out how the woman lost her touch after so many years, claimed that she could never beat him. But as she stood up, the Lady of the Wudang stated that the young fighters must end their fights after a single strike, seeing how he began to party after landing one lucky kick. With that, the mother dared the assassin to charge at her. With that, Hack-sun was determined to show the woman how she was still living in the past by taking her to the brink of death. With that, the Demon of Death launched himself at the Lady of the Wudang, but the warrior was fully prepared, as she quickly dodged the attack, before charging at the assassin, who quickly evaded her. before planting his dagger into the ground in order to adjust his trajectory and spin around it in order to injure the lady of the Wudang. The woman was shocked to see herself the prey of such pitiful tricks, which made her realize how out of shape she had become. Hack-sun found the lucky lady's move to be very readable, as she would always charge up after creating a distance between the two of them, and despite his inability to counterattack in normal circumstances, the lady was now exposing her weak points. With that, he decided to end her within the next move. The assassin then threw his dagger, which the lady parried with her blade, which planted it in the ground. When suddenly she noticed the assassin charging at her from above, but she quickly dodged the kick. Hack-sun then managed to dodge the counterattack and block every strike delivered to him by the Sword Maiden. The assassin then jumped above the lady. Before kicking his dagger towards her, the lady managed to dodge the knife that she just parried by a hair. But just then, she felt the assassin's face close to her own, and so she quickly tried to gain some distance. All went to the assassin's plan, who was now expecting a slash or a stab. Hack-sun realized that the woman would try to stab him based on her stance, giving him the chance to attack as soon as she stretched her hand. The mother tried to obscure the man's vision with her hand, but it was no use, as he could easily predict the path of her attack as he dodged it and grabbed the woman. With that, the demon of death flipped the woman over with his feet, slamming her into the ground, making her cough blood as she suffered great pain. The assassin then grabbed her throat as he was excited to slay the renowned lady of the Wudang, and so he went for the stab, leaving our hero's mother powerless in the face of death. But just then, a great flash knocked him off of her. The defeated lady couldn't be more intrigued, as the assassin tried to regain his footing on the ground, leaving him intrigued by the one behind the powerful energy strike that hit him. Just then, the presence affirmed that young ones like him should stay silent, as he should be aware of the pecking order. The presence then grabbed the man with a giant hand composed of energy. The assassin was shocked to be faced with telekinesis. With that, the great presence began to pity the lady of the Wudang. The princess of the ancient spirit greeted the wife of her son. The entity stepped on the ground. With that, the ancient spirit princess and her granddaughter had arrived, which made the lady of the Wudang feel alarmed. But the old one didn't like the look on her face as she released her chi, lifting her off the ground. The princess then grabbed the warrior's face, stating that she should have properly greeted her husband's mother after such a long time. But the lady of the Wudang, who was fully aware that the princess wasn't her in-law, called her delusional. The princess enjoyed this stingy attitude as she was certain that one day she would recognize her as her mother-in-law. Just then, Hack-sun fell to his knees. As the seal of the old one had been undone, the man realized how wide the gap was between him and the great master. But just as he was about to escape, he realized that he was in possession of more PM. Hack-sun let out a scream, catching the attention of the spirit tribe. As a red menacing energy began to come out of him, the spirits realized that the assassin was filled with impure energy. With that, the crazed Hack-sun was persuaded to even defeat the ancient spirit princess. This made the old lady drop her supposed in-law. The death demon tried to affirm his claim, only to be met with an embarrassing slap to the face. This sent the demon of death flying through the first building and crashing into the other. A giant hole in the form of a palm was suddenly created. Inside the room, the assassin found himself twitching in pain. The ancient spirit princess then affirmed that no matter Hack-sun's efforts, he would never be able to catch up to her. According to the old one, the young killer should wake up in a better state due to the power of her hand. This great strength made our hero's mother realize that the already powerful ancient spirit princess had grown even stronger. Just then, the arriving men called out the old lady for her aggressiveness. This caught the attention of the spirit princess. As the master arrived, he pointed out that he had expected to meet a wiser princess after all these years. The sight of the old man imprinted a blush on the royalty's face. All seemed empty as the man suddenly thanked her, as the princess had clearly given him a chance to flee by not suppressing her energy on the way here, making the old lady point out how the man was ready to end the relationship with his death by standing his ground. The old man then pointed out how, despite keeping the same temper, she had gained even more ugliness. This triggered the ancient spirit princess. The enraged one then quickly charged her attack, blaming her look on the target of her attack. And so the master concentrated his energy, and with that, both energies collapsed, blowing away everything in their way. The lady managed to push the old man back. The master then pointed out how, according to the rumors, one's appearance changes after gaining phenomenal amounts of energy, but the princess didn't want to hear any of it. Meanwhile, the lady of the Wudang and the other spirit watched the clash. Seeing how her in-law was getting overpowered, the hero's mother decided to assist him. When suddenly a hand was placed on her shoulder, the spirit then asked her to come with her. The injured Tian was heavily breathing, leaving his mother startled by his state, while the spirit spotted its target. And just as the mother wanted to go aid her child, the spirit charged in with the aim of stabbing him, leaving the lady alarmed, fearing for the life of her child. Meanwhile, the elderly fight was only getting fiercer. The ancient spirit princess stated that the man could never enjoy a peaceful existence after butchering her clan. Yet the old man affirmed that he loses control once he becomes the Ghost King, but was quickly startled by his opponent making heavy boulders float. This left him amazed, as the ancient princess affirmed that no excuse could justify the fact that he had slain her brethren, and so she unleashed her technique, making the stones gather tightly around the old man. With that, the old one was rendered immobilized. The master was shocked to see that the princess had reached the pinnacle of evolution. The lady revealed that she enjoyed her youthful days by his side. Yet as the guardian of the Phantom King, she had no other choice, as a giant figure of energy appeared behind her. The old man couldn't believe it. With that, the lady recalled her youth and the master's presence, as they spent their days smiling side by side. With that, she bid him farewell, as she clapped her hands. With that, a great light appeared, aiming to end the old man. With that, all was over. Or so she thought, as a mysterious purple light appeared behind the seals. With that, a figure emerged, raking the seal, with a power that almost blew the great master away. The man affirmed that he shall not succumb to the Ghost King ever again, as this world should never become his bloody playhouse. The princess couldn't believe her eyes, as her old love, who had regained his young form, reached his hand out to her. Back to the stabbing princess and horrified mother, the lady thrust her item into the boy's chest, only to find her skull forcefully grabbed and slammed into the wall by the mother, making her hat fall off. The mother demanded to know what the lady did to her child. After a brief silence, the lady calmly revealed that she cleansed him from the poison. Coughs were heard as the mother was left shocked. With that, our hero barfed the intestinal parasite. The mother rushed to check on her son, but the protagonist immediately asked about his grandfather. Yet the woman kept silent. Taeyeon then revealed that the man had revealed everything to him, and with a bright smile affirmed that he shall never be the Ghost King. The lady couldn't believe it, as she hugged her child, before affirming that she will shield him until the end. The spirit then affirmed that there was a way to kill the Ghost King, which shocked them both. The hero affirmed that his grandfather told him about this solution, and so he recalled the old man's words. Back when he was healing his grandson, the old man revealed that he was the Ghost King. This reveal shocked the young man. The old man then explained that the absence of his son was a punishment for his mistakes. The master was once a young, immature man, just like any other Miramist. But he was also an arrogant fighter that enjoyed abusing his strength, and by the time he crumbled many dojos, the man obtained a home of his own, with a lovely partner, and a son, Jahan. Yet his past sins didn't come without a price, as the defeated martial artists burned down his house and ultimately killed the old man's wife. This made him drunk on wrath and hatred towards the culprits, as he was unable to assume the weight of his mistakes. Just then, they revealed themselves to him. Those who followed the ghost and were hated by the Miramists for it, the ancient ghost clan, who waited for their deity to make their name known throughout the world. The clan offered him the powers of the Ghost King in exchange for helping them take revenge on the Miramists, which he stupidly accepted. He and his son enjoyed their time with the ancient ghost clan. Yet a great despair struck him after gaining the dark powers. The master spent countless years showering in the blood of his foes. Just then, he saw his son waking him up. Jahan was happy to see his father regaining himself. The father still had a hard time catching on, but it was revealed that while possessed, many sects along with the clan of his allies had crumbled at his hands. Jahan, who learned the Black Demon King's K-absorption technique along with the treasure of the Ghost King, had successfully extracted the monster from his father. But the old man was left destroyed by the truth, leaving him no choice but to flee. Time kept on passing as children were born after his great crimes. Just then, Jahan took our hero to his father. This made the old man speculate that the curse of the ghost was hereditary, as he could feel it dwelling in the infant, making the master realize that this was divine retribution. This encounter marked his last meeting with his son. After hearing this, the boy was left baffled, and the old man unable to speak. The master then explained that the host must meet 3 conditions in order to preserve himself. 1 must possess the Ghost Jade, learn the technique used by Jahan, and completely activate the treasure of the Ghost King. The old man was determined to free his grandson from their family's curse. Just then, the spirit unclipped her earring and gave it to the injured young man. A great energy could be felt from this artifact, as the boy recognized the item as the Ghost Jade that the old man talked about. The spirit then explained that the previous host lost control of himself since he didn't possess this item that stops the Ghost King from awakening. With that, the mother thanked the lady before apologizing for having harmed her. Just then, the ground beneath them began to shake. This left Taeyeon worried about his grandfather. The spirit urged them to hurry as the elderly seemed at each other's throats. Yet the mother was worried about the spirit, who cracked a gentle smile before whispering in her ear. This left the lady of Wudang completely choked. Meanwhile, the elderly kept on with their fight. The princess bombarded the old man with her attacks. Yet the past ghost was fully prepared, as he began to block, parry, and counter every attack launched at him, but was then quickly alerted by the lady charging a powerful attack, and so an energy blast was quickly unleashed. But to the princess's surprise, the man suddenly appeared behind her, before striking her from behind. The princess couldn't believe it as the past host of the ghost managed to access his form. But her train of thought was cut short by the master apologizing to her, as he charged his fist and bombarded her with a barrage of hits. Each fist caused the princess great pain, but the combo didn't stop there, as he kept on going. The old man kept on his hellish beating on the old lady, before slamming her into the ground, and charging at her from above, fist first, leaving her in even greater pain. The master then asked the woman if she wished for the ghost to be her instrument of vengeance before asking her to let go of her wrath. Yet the spirit affirmed that Miramists were just like her clan, as they also aimed to control the ghosts, but the master firmly denied it, before affirming that he loved her. This shocked the princess, as the man revealed that his feelings for her were the only reason behind his will to be used by her clan. This triggered the princess, who shook the man off of her, before letting out a great amount of energy, as the man claimed to love her despite leaving. With that, a giant entity appeared behind the lady, The old man affirmed that he had no other choice in order to protect his grandson. As the ghost appeared behind him, both would now unleash their true power as they charged at each other, with their fists filled with qi. Both aimed for the first hit. Meanwhile, the lady of Wudang was escaping with her son, but just then she noticed a great light appear behind her. A great explosion could be seen from afar. This shocked the woman, but she wasn't the only one to notice this light, as a shady man could see it from his office in the city. The ominous one realized that the Manhwa would once again be the prey of carnage and chaos. Meanwhile, in a chamber filled with sophisticated equipment, a figure resided sleeping in the pod. But just then, it woke up. The explosion made the news report as it mysteriously occurred in Jiangshan in the Gangwon district, leading to the evacuation of 600 civilians and an unknown number of casualties. This made Sebastian point out that he could hear it, intriguing his servants, as he was referring to the sweet sound of profit. But this only intrigued the man even further. So the vice chairman explained how this explosion could only be caused by someone with the caliber of the Ghost King. But this wasn't the important detail, as it must have taken him out. With that, the man finally realized, as many martial artists would now purchase their power-enhancing drug in order to take the place of the ghost on top of the world. All other servants were left shocked. The assassin then asked about the available distribution line, so the servant revealed that only the eastern line was left intact. This made the blonde man deeply think, as he would need a great plan in order to rely on one distribution line with the Murim patrol squad waiting for their moves. All would have gone well if it weren't for the masked man. This was too good of a chance to miss, as he was certain of the existence of a solution to distribute in all safety, and just as he was thinking of giving it to the people, Sebastian then remembered the ancient Mu squad that could help him. With that, the man ordered his servants to ask the Black Death sect for more drugs, as they would be increasing their distribution by 100%. The next day, in front of a huge mansion, 4 martial artists stood there waiting. One of the 4 great guardians of the Black Death sect, Yahello, also known as the Great Guardian, had a hard time believing that the 4 of them were lastly gathered 7 years ago. While the second guardian, Battle Bamoon Bojang Siuk, was thrilled to witness this particular great might once again. As the third one, named Yurin Li, who was also known as the Heavenly Dancer, pointed out how she only met with them for their master. But the fourth guardian, Yangbyung Jin, the Iron Sand Palm, stated that she should at least wear a smile in front of her family. Yet according to Yurin Li, family should not cause trouble in her business, but the Iron Sand Palm affirmed that she was trying to get her supplies from outside, before cracking a demonic smile and insulting her. With that, tension began to rise between the 2 great guardians, when suddenly both pulled out their weapons. But each of them was blocked by another guardian, which stopped their clash before even occurring. The great guardian affirmed to the Heavenly Dancer that they didn't come here to fight, while the Battle Bamoon pointed out how the Iron Sand Palm only grew more violent in the last 7 years despite understanding his position. The Red Suit affirmed that he had no other choice in order to make a profit, before asking him to give him some of his profit as lust for blood inhabited his eyes. This triggered Bojang Siuk, when suddenly someone asked them to cease their fight, as the master had finally arrived. With that, a door appeared under the empty throne. A mysterious person appeared from behind it. A feminine presence then walked through the mysterious door, with her skirt being blown by the wind. All felt alerted by this immense presence, and all bowed down in order to greet the Alliance Master. The youthful-looking master pointed out how great the outside feels. With that, the master of the Black Death sect, Nation Ju, the Black Demon King, ordered the guardians to raise their heads. Yahello congratulated his master on entering the realm of rejuvenation that allowed one to be enlightened and regain their younger appearance. The Black Demon King then pointed out how much stress the Great Guardian must have endured in these 7 years, before complimenting the Heavenly Dancer on her growing beauty and pointing out how the Battle Bamoon retained the same appearance. The compliment made Yurin blush as she was left flattered by it. The master then pointed out how the Iron Sand Palm's ki grew stronger since the last time, making Yangbyum thank her for the compliment. With that, she decided to use her powers in order to evaluate his improvements. This caught the man off guard, as the master lifted him up, restrained into the air. The Black Demon King then asked him to fight back, but the powerless man was fully aware that despite having reached the 10th star of the Black Demon art, he was still but a weakling in front of the master. With that, his earring was destroyed. The Great Guardian was left amazed by his master, who grew exponentially stronger while training isolation, which allowed her to acquire telekinesis. Nation Ju then pointed out how a grown man like him shouldn't wear such jewelry, while squeezing his skull as he thanked her for being concerned about him. With that, the red suit was freed from her grip. Bojang's eyes became blazing with jealousy as the master had all of her attention on the Iron Sand Palm. But his expression was quickly changed by the master calling out his name, as she asked for a full report on the Ghost King. According to the man, the Phantom Reservist yesterday night, as an investigation concluded that he was part of a great battle, and that they should be locating everyone involved in a short period of time. Yet this didn't satisfy the Black Demon King, as she demanded the location of the Ghost King. The Battle Bamoon promised to deliver it soon. Just then, the ground beneath them began to shake as the master questioned their actions in these last 7 years. The master let out her monstrous aura in anger as she declared her minions to be useless. This made the Great Guardian fear the worst, as the woman's wrath could destroy the entire area. But just then, one of the 4 Great Guardians affirmed that they were aware of the Ghost King's grandchild's whereabouts. The Iron Sand Palm affirmed that he found him on the internet using the Phantom's techniques and that he was the top student of the 34th cohort of the Murim Police University. This intrigued the master as her minion confirmed what he just said. With that, the Black Demon King began to reflect, thinking as hard as she could, until finally reaching an idea. And so she addressed her battle baboon, ordering him to get her into the Murim Police University, leaving him shocked, as this was a part of her plan in order to catch the Ghost King. A new morning shined brightly on the MPU. Taeyeon was standing at its entrance, ready to take on this academic year and this new day. The Murim Patrol Squad was made in order to investigate crimes and ensure safety and order for the citizens of Murim. The Murim Police University is a college owned by the state that cultivates young talents by nourishing them with martial and literal arts for them to join the Murim Patrol Squad. With that, the man kept on explaining how the current generation would also go through 4 years of education. As many students, including our hero and his friend, listened, Lee Gaijia grew tired of the explanation as all who enrolled were well aware of those facts. But to his surprise, Taeyeon was excited, writing down every detail. The amazed young man pointed out how they should be learning different martial arts, including the Flower Mountain Sex Air Burst Sword, which intrigued the young man, who began to recall some unpleasant memories. Lee Gaijia was left beaten by a disappointed man. The old man pointed out how audacious the boy was for calling himself the heir of the Flower Mountain leader. Yet Lee Gaijia affirmed that his worth should have been already proven as he was accepted into the MPU. But the man affirmed that the young one was ignorant of the meaning behind their sex leader position. With that, the man left, pitying Lee Gaijia's performance. That day, the young man was left in shame, leaving him today with a bitter taste under his teeth. Just then, Taeyeon snapped him back to reality, as the man continued his speech about how the university would benefit the freshmen. The young ones were carefully listening to him as he referred to them as the patrol of tomorrow, when suddenly, an armed man appeared in the air behind him, slicing him vertically in a split second, ultimately splitting him in half. Just like that, the man's speech was cut in half by a mysterious assassin. All students were left alerted and shocked by this unexpected turn of events. With that, all the freshmen were thrown into a move of panic. This also included our hero and his friend. More assassins then appeared, blocking every exit the students tried to reach. With that, the men decided to proceed with their mission. Meanwhile, in the Murim Police University, the girl on her phone was shocked by what was said to her. This was none other than Jiho, who firmly affirmed to the other side of the call that she wanted to cut all contact with him in a burst of anger. But just as she hung up, her roommate burst into the room, speculating that the panicked girl was conversing with a guy, before teasing her about her supposedly secret lover. When suddenly, a notification was received. Jiho was relieved to see that it was a message from Jitae informing them that the welcome ceremony had already begun, leaving the other one disappointed. With that, the roommate went to prepare herself. While Jiho was thinking of blocking the person from earlier, and after some hesitation, decided to just close her phone. At the same time, the students were still confused about the assassin's sudden appearance. But just as our surprised hero tried to analyze the situation, he suddenly found a foot on his shoulder, as another student used him and another as a stepping stone in order to charge at one of the attackers. This left the masked one alerted, as he blocked the boy's flying kick at the last moment. But the attack was so powerful that the armed man was knocked back a few meters. This was none other than Jang Haku, who decided to take on the attackers. His kick was so powerful that it was even able to damage the masked man's blade. Our hero was annoyed at the fact that the student used him as a mere stepping stone, when he suddenly noticed a fist close to his face. Taeyeon dodged the punch at the last second, but before he could process what just happened, the attacker suddenly grabbed his neck and used his foot in order to knock our hero off his feet. The man was then ready to deal a devastating punch to the protagonist, who had just hit the ground. But Taeyeon managed to dodge the first once again. Yet before he could even react, a shoe suddenly appeared in front of his face. The quick hero blocked the flying kick at the last moment. This performance made our hero realize that their attackers weren't regular martial artists, but decided to think of it later. And with that, a fierce war cry was shouted. Jang Haku was taking on 3 assassins at once, while Lee Gaijiev also did his best to fight back, while our hero found himself dodging slash after slash. But just as the attacker went for a thrust, Taeyeon firmly grabbed his arm, flipped him over, before using his elbow in order to deal a finishing blow. As his opponent was sent flying into the wall, our hero began to wonder about the way these skilled fighters infiltrated the college, when suddenly he found his head pressed by a mysterious hand. This was Jin Haku using him once again as a stepping stone, before kicking our hero towards his opponent. This triggered our hero once again as he began to question if the boy was friend or foe. But just then, the number 2 decided to unleash his strength, delivering a powerful kick in the direction of Taeyeon's skull. But it turned out that the close attack was meant for the attacker, who immediately lost consciousness after that. With that, the number 2 ordered our hero to stop troubling his fights, once again triggering the number 1. Screams kept on echoing through the gymnasium, as the students tried to take on their attackers. Yet the 2 greatest fighters were only staring at each other. Jin Haku tried to go back to the fight, but was suddenly stopped by our hero, who placed his hand on his shoulder, affirming that he wasn't done with him yet. This triggered the boy, who tried to strike Taeyeon, who quickly dodged with his elbow as an attacker charged at them. The genius was then shocked to see his rival grabbing an enemy with his feet, before flipping him over and mercilessly slamming him into the ground. Kang Taeyeon affirmed that Jin Haku should always survey his own back. This performance left the annoyed rival amazed. A man was sitting alone in a luxurious apartment. This was none other than one of the 4 great guardians, who tried to contact someone but to no use, and so he closed his phone. But just as he was about to be left to his thoughts, a gentle hand placed a drink on the table next to him. This was none other than his vassal Inaba, asking him about his day. The man affirmed that the Black Demon King was still focused on the Ghost King, making her point out how he should be leading the Black Death sect. Yet the Great Guardian affirmed that things were different now and that they will always be overshadowed by the Justice Miram faction if they can't increase their popularity. Inaba listened closely as the Great Guardian explained how those under Bojang and Yeren were many followers of the Master. The vassal then revealed that the Assassin sect had been doing their best, having asked them to double their drug production in order to hand the PM out to the public. The Guardian considered this step to be a bold move, but the woman affirmed that they were only making PM more accessible, as many civilians had already acquired it. But the man was worried about the Miram patrol squad, who kept tabs on them, making him affirm that they should handle the matter with care. This made a playful look appear on Inaba's face. The vassal then asked the Guardian if he was aware of the Ancient Moon squad, leaving him intrigued. And so she explained how it was a growing powerhouse composed of teens who use PEMs who annoy the authorities with their numerous small felonies. The woman proposed to supply them with drugs in order to distract the police and make their chief, Jen and Jang, a mockery for the people as they spread chaos in his city, allowing their sect to use it to their advantage. And with that, the Guardian realized that the plan was to use kids to carry out their evil plans. This devilish plot greatly pleased the man. Meanwhile, back in the gymnasium, most of the students were defeated. Jio couldn't believe her eyes, as only Lee Gaijia, Kang Taeyeon, and Jin Haku stood firm, cornered by the attackers. The hero told the girls to get out of danger, yet Kim Boa shouted to the upperclassmen to stop their scene, having overdone it this time around. This shocked the 3 remaining fighters, when suddenly, a presence suddenly landed on our heroes' backs. This was the man who was giving his speech, affirming that this was their way to test if the fighters were worthy of becoming members of the patrol squad. The shocked hero pointed out how the man was supposed to be dead, yet the smiling one affirmed that this was only a doll split in half and that every generation falls for it. Hiho affirmed that this was a joke that the upperclassmen did at every entrance ceremony, while her friend affirmed that she also fell for it her time. With that, the man congratulated the 3 of them for lasting until the end, claiming them to be the only ones in their generation worthy of being the Miram Patrol Squad trainees, before congratulating them on being worthy of the badge of the Miram Patrol Squad. Just like that, the room was filled with the sound of applause. Taeyeon tried to process the bad joke, while Lee Gaejeok felt relieved. On the other hand, Jin Haku didn't seem to care, and so he just walked away. Our hero tried to stop him, explaining that he was intrigued by his fighting style, and after thinking for a short while, Jin Haku just slammed the door behind him, leaving our hero annoyed once again. Taeyeon couldn't help but feel a similarity between their fighting styles. But on the outside of the room, Jin Haku recalled how the protagonist used him as a stepping stone, leaving him full of a silent, envious anger. That night, the Central Police Department, the man decided to give a brief explanation on the Ancient Moon Squad, who recently gained popularity. Jin and Jang, the chief of the Miram Police Patrol and leader of the Miramists, allowed the man to proceed. The Ancient Moon Squad are a new source of problems, a group mostly formed of teenagers, who resorted to the power-enhancing medicine in order to spread chaos across the country. The Ancient Moon Squad had now committed an endless list of crimes, making them more feared by the public as time passed, and so Jin and Jang asked if the mastermind was located. The man affirmed that they were still working on the case, yet since it turned out that Miramists were involved, it was likely that someone was teaching the delinquents martial arts. Just then, an officer affirmed that their forces were very much capable of handling teenage amateurs. Yet another, wearing black, affirmed that the police hadn't accomplished any remarkable feat against them as the situation was getting out of control. This made the policeman insinuate that the martial artist was mocking the police forces, since now one of them was their leader, triggering the man in black. With that, the chief stepped in, claiming that it was their duty to maintain peace regardless of who is causing trouble, before looking at the one causing him a headache. This made the policeman shiver in fear. Jin and Jang then declared that any case related to the Ancient Moon Squad would be handled by the Miram Patrol Squad before ending the meeting. With that, the chief exited the office along with another. Jin and Jang asked if the evidence was taken care of. His secretary, Donga Lee, affirmed that no trace was left of the chief's meeting with the dead branch manager. The leader of the Miramists then asked about the PM analysis, making the man reveal that despite not understanding how it enhances one's physique, addictive chemicals were found in it. This confirmed the man's suspicions, who feared that this drug would end up in the hands of the citizens. Jinnen aimed to use the branch manager as a way to find the distribution lines, and according to him, something feels off, as if a traitor leads to every single one of their spies becoming a target. Seeing how little evidence he had to reach the truth, the man ordered the secretary to watch carefully in order to avoid any internal fights. But just as the elevator arrived, Donga Lee felt alarmed. He tried to warn his superior, but the man was already aware. Jin and Jang was determined to enter alone. The police chief found himself alone in the elevator. But just as it reached floor 19, the focused man turned his gaze, pointing out how it has been a long time since he last met our hero's mother. With that, the lady of the Wudang greeted her dad. Jin pointed out how the lady never takes him into consideration, acting on her own free will, and how she let herself be charmed by the son of the Ghost King before asking her for the reason behind her visit. The lady of the Wudang affirmed it to be the treasure of the Ghost King. Jin affirmed that this item was destroyed, but the woman knew that her father was lying, having obtained it from a special someone, triggering a man, who affirmed once again to not be its possessor. The elevator kept going down. The lady of the Wudang then affirmed that she shall slay every member of the evil Murun faction that she will meet just like before. According to his ways of raising her into a killer, Jenin stood silent. His daughter, Jua Jiang, affirmed that she will leave a trail behind her to make the world know of her acts as his daughter, pointing out how this will make him lose his great position. The chief of the police related the sudden actions of his daughter to the explosion that recently occurred in the countryside. As the elevator reached floor number 8, the man felt a great pressure on his shoulder. With that, he finally accepted to hand out the item. Yet he shall only trade it for the secret manual of the Black Demon King. This left the lady of the Wudang shocked, as her father was referring to the Black Demon Book, which he confirmed, stating that no other item was worth the treasure of the Demon King. As she sheathed her blade, Jaya pointed out the greed of her father. Jinin affirmed that all of his actions aimed to maintain order in Murim, before calling his disappearing child a fool. Meanwhile, at the Murim Police University dormitory, our exhausted heroes had finally reached their beds. Lee Gajiok was still not over the chaotic welcoming ceremony they just had. Yet Taeyin seemed absent-minded, as he was still annoyed by the fact that he and Jin Haku used similar fighting styles. But just then, he was snapped back to reality by his roommate. Lee Gajiok was more than happy to have become a Murim Patrol Squad trainee, as it would surely grant them a bright future. Yet our hero didn't see it as a big deal, but his roommate affirmed that it truly is. Lee Gajiok was certain that girls would finally like them, yet the young hero didn't see the importance. And so the one in yellow shyly tried to explain why he wanted to go on dates. But it turned out that Taeyin was only teasing him about the fact that he never had a girlfriend, leaving the boy annoyed. The protagonist revealed that he didn't care about dates, as his mother always warned him about attractive people. This statement made Lee Gajiok laugh, as it meant that Taeyin was one of those who blindly obey their mother. Taeyin charged at his annoying roommate, who kept on his mockery. After that, Lee Gajiok affirmed that he was excited to start his glorious days of college to an indifferent protagonist. Yet at the first lights of the next day, both were left with a baffled face, as Gio ordered them to jump, leaving them shocked as they stood on the top of a very high skyscraper. This reaction made Gio think that the freshmen didn't know Kingdong, the Chinese martial art that allows one to make their body lighter, but the hero affirmed that this wasn't the issue. Yet while Taeyin was still shocked by the start of their journey, a figure came in charging towards the edge, before suddenly jumping off the roof. Shinhaku jumped headfirst without giving it a second thought, leaving all of his female admirers blown away by his boldness, leaving Lee Gajiok amazed. But the boy was even more amazed when his roommate jumped shortly after. With that, the third young man had no choice but to jump off the building, leaving the examiner somewhat satisfied. Taeyin did his best in the 9 AM training session, and ate like a horse during the lunch break, slept through the basic investigation methods lecture which occurred right after, and went once again berserk in the training session right after, before conducting another monstrous eating session at dinner, and falling asleep with Lee Gajiok at the 8 PM key training, right next to the number 2 who mocked them. In the end, both students collapsed on their beds. Taeyin recalled how his roommate claimed that they had a glorious college life in front of them, leaving him annoyed. Our hero was left unsatisfied, as he expected to help the Murin Patrol Squad upon enrolling here, making Lee Gajiok ask him to stop complaining and go purchase some food. But just as he was about to refuse the rude order, the young man was smacked in the face with a credit card. Taeyin was left amazed, as his roommate gave him a black card with the liberty of using it however he liked. With that, our hero changed his mind and decided to run to the store. After that, near a supermarket, 3 delinquents sat with each other. The first began to count the PM in their possession and was unsatisfied with the small number obtained. The second one affirmed that this was all he could get, which didn't make sense to the first. This made the third smoker point out how the prices of PM must have gone up. With that, the first was left annoyed as he ingested a pill, and upon swallowing it, his strength began to quickly rise, as the drug greatly enhanced his body. With that, the angry, enhanced delinquent punched a hole through the wall, determined to prove to everyone that he and his friends didn't belong on the ends of leashes, as they would terminate anyone who stands in their way. Yet while the first of his friends understood the seller's point of view, the second warned him about excessive ingestion of these addictive pills, making the one with a hat point out how someone almost met his end after consuming 4 pills at once. But the young man affirmed that he wouldn't be kicking the bucket soon, when he suddenly found the PM being snatched away from his hands by no other than the mysterious masked man. Just then, our hero passing by heard some noises, and upon taking a look at it, was left utterly shocked. The mask took a close look at the PM. With that, the delinquent quickly charged at the man, who quickly intercepted his punch, before twisting his arm in a painful and quick way, leaving him to fall defeated onto the ground. With that, the other two charged at the mask, but the first found his eyes to be punctured, leaving the only delinquent standing amazed, before being punched into the wall in a fraction of a second. Just like that, the mask easily defeated the three delinquents, before picking up the rest of the PM. But just then, someone tried to stop him. This was no other than our hero, who mistook the situation for an adult thief taking the money of young delinquents. With that, Taein descended into the alley, ready to take on the mask by himself. The protagonist then began to mock the mask for being a martial artist who steals from thugs, and claiming that he only wears a mask out of pure shame. With a swift move of his hand, the masked man took his stance, making a chill run down the young man's spine, as he only felt the mask and himself alone in a silent void, with a freezing wind slicing through him. This made him realize how truly powerful his masked opponent is. The shivering Taein also realized that he must retreat at all costs. Yet as he gathered his ki, the young man felt intrigued, as an unknown feeling pushed him to engage. With that, the protagonist jumped at the masked man, who immediately counterattacked his kick with one of his own. This marked the beginning of their clash. Both tried to gain some distance. Taein then dodged the mask's kick, but the mask also dodged the hero's counterattack. Yet as the man surprised, he found his opponent right in front of him, ready to deliver a powerful punch. But just then, our hero recalled how the masked man attacked the eyes of the thug in a situation similar to this, when he suddenly found fingers near his face aiming for his ocular globes. The student dodged blindness at the last second, but was left shocked as the fingers that he barely dodged were enough to cut his forehead. With that, the young man used his feet to make the mask take a few steps back, creating a small distance between them. Taein was still shocked by the power of the attack that just grazed him. Our hero realized that the masked man possessed a perfect defense with a better riposte timing than anticipated. The young man couldn't believe that he feels scared as he speculated that the city was filled with powerful fighters like the masked one. With that, he cleaned the dust off of him, as he was determined to unmask his mysterious opponent. That same night, in the middle of nowhere, a car roamed the remote roads. The servant asked Sebastian if he was certain of his directions, who was annoyed at the poor state of the roads in this area. Before finally arriving at their destination, the first guard quickly made signals to the second, and with that, they let the assassins pass as they bowed to them. The parking they arrived at was full of cars, which intrigued the vice chairman. An old man awaited their arrival. Sebastian then greeted his master before asking about his health, to which the old man affirmed that he was fine, and with that, invited them inside. As they walked the tight corridor, Sebastian expressed to his master his curiosity regarding the many cars present in this remote location, speculating that he owned them all, but was then left intrigued when the old man stopped walking, as he opened the lock with his key. Suddenly, cheers came out of the open door, and he pointed out that the answer would be unveiled soon. As two men were fighting in a ring, Sebastian listened to the cheers echoing through the giant room. An underground arena existed in this remote location. The fights in the caged ring were fierce. The red helmet delivered a destructive punch to the black one, leaving him in great pain as his helmet began to shatter. The red fighter then began to bombard him with a barrage of brass knuckle punches, all aiming for his head, painting the arena red as blood flew into the air. The fist was firm and bloody, as it delivered the final blow that completely broke the helmet. Just then, the crowd went crazy. Sebastian then turned to his teacher while trembling. The assassin, who couldn't help but smile, was amazed to see his teacher hiding something this great from him. And so the fights kept going on. Sebastian admired the scene with passion, as the watchers were betting on their favorite fighter, making him recall a very similar and familiar scene. The red helmet won again, with the boy remembering more scenes. It looked like this exact moment, a young Sebastian admired in wonder, when a mysterious adult began to pat his head, asking him to engrave this moment in his memory. As all of this was the might sustaining their assassin sect. This shady figure was no other than the father of the amazed boy. But just then, the vice sect leader was snapped back to reality. As Sebastian tried to regain his senses, his master realized that he was recalling some of his earliest memories. The master wished that the past leader would also cast his eyes upon this scene, as this was a recreation of the battle arena he once managed. The blonde one agreed as he played with his pendant, but just as the man pointed out how frustrating it is to not know his current location, he and the servant were shocked to see Sebastian having jumped off the platform in the direction of the fighters, and with that landed in the middle of the arena. The cheers were replaced by silence after witnessing the unexpected scene. The boy then introduced himself to the crowd as the vice leader of the assassin sect, Sebastian. But the angry crowd didn't care, as this stranger had interrupted the fight, thus the outcome of their bets. With that, the angry fighter tried to humble the intruder, only to be met with a devastating punch to the face in the next instant. Sebastian had defeated the fighter and shattered his helmet with a flick of his fist, leaving him to be slammed into the ground. The vice leader then began to crush the fighter's face with his boot, before asking all who opposed him to step out of the crowd. But the man was only met with a terrified silence. Sebastian saw that no one dared to approach him, as he increased the pressure on the man's face, until he fissured the man's skull. Sebastian's foot was now covered in the fighter's blood. The vice leader then stomped the fighter's face one last time with the utmost brutality, This horror scene terrified the watching crowd. Their horrified expressions pleased the bloodlusted maniac. With that, the delinquents began to discuss among themselves how Sebastian was the one who tasked them with distributing the drugs while wondering about his presence here. And while the servant couldn't believe his eyes, the master was happy to see that Sebastian maintained the same wrath as before. With that, Sebastian demanded the attention of the Ancient Moon squad, claiming that he only wants them to have the PM, because their cause was righteous. This shocked the teenagers, as, according to him, their animalistic and unstoppable behavior wasn't a sin but a sign of the power enhancement drug's benefit. With that, Sebastian ordered the young ones to share their new freedom with the entire world by handing out his product to every civilian trapped in the boundaries of society. Once the PM liberates the rest of humanity, the rules of their world shall be altered, and the era of the Ghost King, who only governed according to his instincts, will be once again reborn by their end. And with that, the vice leader ended his speech. Sebastian was met with the enthusiastic cheers of the crowd as a response. But while the vice leader was left happy with these reactions, murderous intent dwelled in the Red Fighter's eyes. Meanwhile, back to our hero's encounter with the mask. Taeyeon tried to shower the man with kicks only to be blocked at every attempt. This defense amazed the young one. The mask then dodged our hero's kick with terrifying speed, before striking his opponent's feet, making him trip and fall to the ground. Our hero then noticed his masked foe ready to stomp on his face, but Taeyeon managed to dodge it at the last second. Seeing how the mask isn't even giving him the chance to react, the young man realized that he must regain his fighting stance as soon as possible. But before he could even move, the masked one managed to close the distance between them. The protagonist blocked the punch at the last second. Taeyeon couldn't endure this fight any longer, as the mask was trying to end him as quickly as possible. As he tried to counterattack, the boy pointed out how his opponent was going against the clock. Taeyeon then blocked the knee strike going for his chin. With that, he firmly grabbed the man's leg and lowered him to the ground, leaving him surprised. With that, our hero was certain to unmask his opponent, but the mysterious fighter easily dodged the punch, before twisting himself and smacking his talon onto the boy's head. Taeyeon realized that he was too confident, before getting slammed into the wall. With that, the mask got back up on his feet, took a quick look at his opponent, before taking something out of his pocket, which turned out to be a karambit. Just like that, the masked man was now in possession of a weapon. With it, he began to approach his defeated opponent. Taeyeon struggled to even move, but after taking a quick look at the weapon in his hand, and thinking for a short moment, the mask put his karambit away, before jumping off and fleeing the fight scene. This sudden mercy triggered our hero, who tried to chase him, but suddenly Taeyeon found himself falling. Seeing how his legs were unusable, the hero realized that he was currently unable to practice Qigong when suddenly someone addressed him. It was one of the beaten-up delinquents ordering him to call 911. The thug then began to scream at the Miramist for not obeying him immediately. This rudeness shocked Taeyeon. Meanwhile, on a construction site, a fierce fight broke out between the men in black and a bunch of troublemakers. The man ordered the members of the Muram patrol squad to capture all of the criminals, before trying to strike one with his sword. The delinquent then dodged the officer's kick, before making him fall off his feet. With that, the criminal began his escape. The man realized that this one must be an upper rank, seeing how he tried to run away using his great movement prediction technique, leaving him determined to capture him at once. The girl with pink hair waited alone, slowly preparing herself, before finally jumping off. It was none other than Jihu, ready to take part in the action. The girl was falling headfirst towards the fleeing criminal, who began to brag about how he was uncatchable, being the #1 Qigong user in their organization. But just then, the girl arrived from above and grabbed his face with her legs by surprise, before flipping him over and savagely slamming him into the ground, leaving him to scream in agonizing pain, when suddenly a katana was inserted into his mouth. With that, Jigu captured the higher rank. The man then praised her on her expected brilliant performance. Jigu accepted the compliment with a humble smile. After that, the police finally arrived at the scene. The man's phone then began to ring. He then called Jihu, as this was a call from Seongyu to her. As soon as she picked up the phone, the man asked her to immediately return to the Muram Police University. This shocked Jigu, as her work wasn't done here, but Seongyu insisted on letting another team take it from here for her to return. The man, who was in the presence of Jin and Kang, affirmed that the matter was vital. Back to our hero. Taeyeon asked the thugs if the mask truly stole their power-enhancing drugs. The defeated delinquent rudely confirmed once again while swearing. This triggered our hero once again as he smacked the boy's head. Taeyeon then realized that one of his hostages was only raising one arm, so the delinquent, trying to be on his best behavior, claimed to be hurt. Our hero then recalled how the masked man must have dislocated his shoulder, and so he decided to put it back in place. The thug let out a scream in pain, but was then amazed at the lack of pain, making our hero take him for a crybaby and question his and his friend's age. With that, Taeyeon realized that the mask held back against the young ones. With that, our hero tried to go on his way and asked the children to behave when suddenly one of them asked him to hear him out. The one with the hat recognized him as a student of MPU based on his clothes and being in Muram High. He hoped to be taught some of the hero's moves. This annoyed Taeyeon as he threw a bag at the young man's face. Just then, our hero was called by Gaijiuk. But just as he answered, the man was met with a giant scream asking him about his whereabouts. And just as he was about to complain about his long night, Gaijiuk affirmed that it didn't matter, as they were summoned to an emergency meeting. Back in the underground arena, the red helmet quickly dodged his challenger's punch, Before quickly kicking him in the ribs, the giant one tried to fight back, only to find himself grabbed by the red helmet. With that, both were propelled into the air, with the red helmet dealing the finishing blow as they hit the ground. Just like that, the giant man was defeated, and the red helmet was once again victorious. With that, the crowd began to cheer for the winner. The red helmet stood there as the crowd adored him. The old man then approached him, asking if he enjoyed reliving these moments, which the red fighter confirmed. With that, the master affirmed that the negotiation with the assassin sect had come to an end. The fighter then took off his helmet, throwing it onto the ground. The red fighter, who was none other than the great guardian Iron Sand Palm, was eager to know what Sebastian had said. With that, the vassal quickly installed chairs for both of them, before covering his master with his signature red coat. It turned out that Sebastian aimed to raise the price of the drug. The old man pointed out that the young man resembled his father. With that, the man decided to submit his forces to the blonde one's demands, seeing how he had people to regain his lost profit. The Iron Sand Palm had 3 hitmen under his command. Tegan found himself exhausted, making Lee Jijok wonder if he got into a fight over the groceries. But just then, the terrifying Jihu decided to silence the latecomers. Hakun began to think of how stupid his comrades were as they were being choked by the second year. With everyone present, the emergency meeting began. Xiangyu Zhang, the team leader of the External Affairs of the Muren Patrol Squad, affirmed that the trainees will join their team for a special mission tomorrow. This left our hero and his roommate excited. The team leader then decided to briefly explain the concept of PM and Ancient Moon Squad to the students in order to give them the mission background. Taeyeon recognized the term PM as one he heard recently. Xiangyu explained the effects of the drug that criminal miramists have been using recently, with the most famous being the Ancient Moon Squad, who committed a great variety of crimes. Taeyeon was shocked to know of Miram's current situation, as the team leader affirmed that they had to act fast in order to maintain order. With that, the man gave them the task of uncovering every pill of PM and every troublemaker in the Ancient Moon Squad. The intrigued Gejia pointed out how the police should take care of the Ancient Moon Squad, seeing how young they sound. But according to the team leader, these teenagers use PM, making each one of them rival many police officers, which is why they shouldn't be taken lightly. The dumb question earned the boy a choke from Jihu for speaking without thinking, which terrified our hero, who was about to ask the same thing. Xiangyu then explained how the power-enhancing drug was an issue even before the appearance of the teenage gang, which is why they must locate the supplier. With that, Taeyeon raised his hand and affirmed that he came in contact with some people who bought the said drug. Meanwhile, in the police interrogation room for Muramists, where the criminal from earlier was held, the interrogator asked the thug about the source of the PM. But the criminal declined with a smile. Letting go of the truth equaled letting go of his own life. And according to him, the clueless detective should at least guarantee his safety first. Stating this, the officer on the other side of the glass stated that the man won't talk as he expects, while his colleagues claimed that they should talk to the superiors to guarantee the man's safety. But as the man was annoyed at the idea of the chief knowing of this embarrassing incident, a shadow mysteriously agreed with him. Both officers felt alarmed, as many cuts occurred. The detective felt startled by the sudden sound from outside, and while he was left confused, the criminal was fully aware that his allies had arrived. The thug expressed his relief to have kept his mouth shut. This left the detective trembling, as he quickly barged out of the interrogation room. The armed man then ordered the attacker to unveil himself, when suddenly his electric gun was sliced in half. The confused man didn't even have time to process the event, as he was caught in the attacker's strings. With that, the detective found his ends sliced by numerous steel cables, leaving only the chained man alive. The criminal felt honored as Miss Bob personally came to rescue him, and just as he began to ask to be freed from his shackles, the chains were ripped to pieces, leaving the man freed of his bounds. The vassal asked the man about everything he unveiled, but the panicked thug explained that he kept silent and didn't give any data about the drugs or the guardian that she protects. With that, the young man found himself being decapitated, having dared to mention Yahello. With that, the woman affirmed on the phone that the job was complete. The great guardian was pleased. At the same time, inside the luxurious car, the man asked his servant to send someone to look into the Ancient Moon Squad, which confused the servant, as they should already have all the data regarding them. So Sebastian explained how he only expected them to be teenagers aiming for profit, and how he suspected a big name to assist them from the shadows. With that, the vice chairman declared that their sect will manufacture PM from now on, which confused the chauffeur, as this could damage their relationship with Chairman Yu. But the vice leader affirmed that no harm will be done, as the chairman's product will be given to the teenage thugs while they pass their own as the chairman's in order to double their profit. This supplementary revenue will go to the sublimation of their sect's secret weapon in order to take the Black Death sect's place as the leaders of the evil Murim faction. Just then, Sebastian heard his phone ringing, and just as he picked it up, an emergency seemed to have appeared. The scientist with a torn and blood-covered coat affirmed that they have lost control over test subject 13. Just then, the man saw a devastating fist heading towards him. With that, blood covered the walls as the phone flew off. Before landing on the ground, one menacing creature remained standing in a room full of corpses. The monster then raised his fist. This was none other than test subject 13, who just went crazy. Just then, someone picked up the phone of the late scientist and answered. A girl with a pendant similar to Sebastian affirmed that the experiment was no failure. the team leader declared that they shall interrogate the hero's suspects tomorrow, and heavily ordered them to stay at all times with their assigned partner before ending the emergency meeting, while the calm Haku found himself as the partner of the over-energetic girl complimenting his handsomeness. Gejiuk Lee found his hand crushed by the tall and friendly Jita Park. Our hero found himself stiff and red-faced as he was paired up with Ji-hoo. In a move of panic, our hero affirmed that he was looking forward to working with his Xianbei, referring to her as his senior. But the girl didn't respond, and instead started to eye him from toe to head. This odd behavior made our hero grow anxious, to the point where he began to speculate that his senior liked him. But Taeyam was even more startled when the girl asked him to go out with her all of a sudden. With that, he began to imagine a scene where he stands firm to protect Ji-hoo. Before thinking about marriage, when he was suddenly snapped back to reality by the same girl, Taeyam tried to explain himself, claiming to be thinking of their big mission tomorrow. With that, our hero aimed to make his roommate jealous while enjoying the full university experience, while his partner couldn't force herself to take him seriously. Back then, the chief of the police personally asked Ji-hoo to keep tabs on Taeyeon. Jinan affirmed that this wasn't the case, as he only wanted her to give him a daily report on the future big names, since tomorrow's special mission would divide them in groups of 2. And when the girl asked for a reason behind the odd request, the old man just claimed that he only wanted to keep tabs on a future bright name of the Mirim, before pointing out how she was still in his debt. This left the girl very annoyed, as the chief of police was wasting the favor that she owed him. As for her, our hero was a useless clown. Ji-gu then addressed Taeyeon, who quickly fixed his posture and asked him to meet her on the rooftop for a private conversation. This left the boy excited, as his senior ordered him to follow her. Taeyeon then turned his gaze to his frustrated roommate, before letting out a mocking laugh in order to provoke the boy's jealousy. With that, Lee Gejiak let out a frustrated scream, being the only one paired with a male senior, when suddenly his partner decided to smack him on the head. Shortly after, on the rooftop, Taeyeon followed his senior as requested, and was left with a blushing face when the girl explained how she wanted to converse here in private, as being overheard would be problematic. A nervous smile appeared on our hero's face as he speculated that his senior was going to ask him out. Jiwoo's next gesture caught him by surprise, as it made him think that city inhabitants usually hold hands at times of confession. Taeyeon then acted on instinct, putting both of his hands in hers, but the annoyed Ji-hoo completely brushed him off and stated that she was asking him for his cell phone, leaving our hero quite embarrassed. Our hero was all smiles, hoping to get the pretty girl's number. With that, Ju threw him back his phone. Taeyeon was then left intrigued, as his senior tasked him with a report about his daily activities starting tomorrow, so Ju explained how he should tell her about his whereabouts and actions. But this left him even more confused. Yet, when tried to ask for a reason behind this sudden order, the girl didn't gratify him with a clear answer. And just as our hero tried to argue, his head was suddenly struck by a mysterious projectile. This was a knife given to him by his senior to use in case of sudden danger during the mission. Thus, he was ordered to always keep it close. Ji-hoo then gave him a terrifying death stare as she brought up the case of missing reports, leaving our mighty protagonist shivering. Meanwhile, with the 2 other trainees, Lee Gaejiuk was still annoyed by the fact of having a male partner, which Haku couldn't take seriously. But just then, a weird laugh caught their attention, as a mysterious figure appeared out of nowhere. The red-haired girl was none other than the Black Demon King enjoying the outside. Her odd behavior intrigued the trainees, who considered her to be a young girl, when suddenly something caught her attention. With that, she rushed at Haku and complimented his amazing body and ki, before asking if he was Kang Taeyeon, leaving him furious about the misconception. Just then, the boy jumped in and affirmed that this young man was Haku, as all feminine presence seemed to be looking for Taeyeon. With that, the girl suddenly appeared behind them and continued her way. This speed and behavior made the trainees mistake her for a ghost. Meanwhile, the Black Demon King left entertained, having detected the Ghost King's power from Jang Haku. A new dawn announcing the first day of the investigation appeared, with our hero still annoyed by the insignificant reports. Yet when tried to argue for a reason, he was once again met with Ji-hoo's terrifying stare, leading him to laugh it off and try to focus his terrified self in the case ahead. When suddenly Ji-hoo noticed something, and as our hero asked her about the start of their mission, the crowd's attention was turned to a violent scene, as a young man was knocked fiercely into the air. This scenery left our heroes shocked, as the man seemed to be in a great amount of pain. Taeyeon then recognized him as the young delinquent from before, begging him for help as his face became disfigured and swelled. Seeing this, Taeyeon scolded the boy for ditching school before asking him about the situation. Ji was curious, as the both of them looked acquainted, so our hero explained how he was the Lee he previously mentioned, when suddenly a loud motor noise interrupted the protagonist. The Marine Patrol Squad evaded the Ancient Moon Squad's sneak attack at the last moment. One of the delinquents used a nearby pillar to adjust his trajectory, aiming to crush the boy's head. But to the delinquent's misfortune, our hero saved him by kicking the criminal in the back. The scene of her comrade getting knocked off in one hit left the other one startled. According to Taeyeon, despite the thug's need for brute correction, the Ancient Moon Squad had no right to do so. With that, the girl activated her board and rushed to flee the scene. Seeing this, our annoyed hero ignored Ji-hoo and dashed to chase the fugitive. Ji was shocked to see Taeyeon leave his lead beaten up and unprotected. The girl then realized that the eyes of the masses were on her, and so reached out for her phone with great anger. The fleeing delinquent entered a construction site, with Taeyeon still following her trail. Her speed made him realize why the teenage troublemakers were a problem for the police. But just then, our hero found something intriguing. Having spotted two tied-up men in a pitiful and beaten-up state, the protagonist recognized them as the other two delinquents that were attacked by the mask. With that, one of them screamed at him to flee. Taein then realized the presence of a great number of Ancient Moon's squad members. They were many, with some of them being armed. Our hero found himself standing alone in the face of the thug army. But Taein just let out a sigh and pointed out how the Ancient Moon squad, who was targeting the police, was now trying to take on the Marine Patrol squad. With that, our hero decided to show the young delinquents the true power held by the authorities. Meanwhile, at the university dorm, Haku entered his room, only to feel alarmed by a presence standing in the middle of the room. This was none other than the chief of the police himself, asking the boy if he was going to ignore the special investigation that started today. But Haku just ignored the man as he took off his jacket. Jin and Kang then reminded Haku that the memory of his father's death will be celebrated at the end of the week, before pointing out how he wanted the brothers to go together, having already spoken with the eldest. With that being said, Jin and Kang asked his grandson about the duration of this rebellious phase, affirming that Haku possessed a martial arts potential far more brilliant than Xiangyu. Hearing this made the young man crush the handle in his hand. Haku then asked the police chief if he was aware of his purpose. The young man wanted to unmask his grandfather and expose him as the monster who leads the Justice faction. Jenin stood silent as the broken metal fell to the ground, before affirming that his grandson speaks like a weakling and that one who doesn't possess enough strength must always sacrifice in the name of order, and asking him if he became mighty enough to escape this law. Eku didn't respond and exited the room while affirming to his grandfather that he shall prove it to him. Meanwhile, the delinquents of the Ancient Moon squad charged all at once at our hero. Yet the unimpressed Taein affirmed that they were overestimating themselves, as he jumped into the air, spinning his whole body, striking multiple foes at once with a single kick, leaving them to drop on the ground. Taein then found countless more charging at him from above, yet our quick hero managed to dodge every attack when he suddenly noticed a wheel above him. The protagonist then dodged an attack, once again aiming for his head, but just then the electric wheel was activated, catching our hero off guard, as the two delinquents used the first wheel to change their trajectory, before hitting him with the second one. Our hero was left shocked by this move that he never witnessed before. This sneak attack managed to knock Taein off his feet. Our hero then felt alerted as he found more foes charging at him with their electric wheels. With that, Taein had no other choice but to use his technique on the teenagers, and so he began to quickly spin his legs, knocking every delinquent that charged at him. But then all were left confused, as the Marine Patrol squad had suddenly vanished before their eyes. When suddenly all were caught off guard by a light appearing from above, Taein had gathered up his Kai into his hand, and with a great angle from above, unleashed his mighty Ghost King wave, releasing a powerful blast upon the young delinquents. Some of them stood frozen at the sight of what seemed an inevitable light. With that, a great flash illuminated the construction site. This spectacular sight didn't go unnoticed by Jihu, who realized that this light was the result of her partner's fight, and so she rushed to the battlefield, only to be met with quite a shock, as all criminals were beaten up, with Taein being the only fighter left standing. Just then, our exhausted hero noticed his senior, and immediately started to flex on the confused girl about how he took down all the delinquents by himself. Jihu was still in disbelief as the young man accomplished by himself what trained police officers struggled to do. With that, she began to recall how the chief of the police wanted to keep tabs on Taein, who was destined to be a big name in the world of Murim. The girl, still in disbelief, began to believe the words of the old man. But her behavior caught our hero's eyes once again. The red-faced Taein was happy to see her eyeing him. Jihu's image was beautifully painted in our hero's mind, who was left at a loss for words. Our blushing protagonist saw how magnificent his partner was after looking at her from up close. But Taein was then caught off guard when the angry Jihu asked him about the dojo he is from. The girl pointed out how the hero must have an astonishing teacher for being a countryside boy who became the #1 student by triumphing over all elite sects. This made our hero panic as he tried to find the right words, but the angry Jihu awaited a clear answer. Just then, Taein claimed to feel a presence on a higher floor, and with that charged ahead in order to flee the conversation, only making Jihu find him more suspicious. After reaching safety, our hero recalled the exact words of his mother regarding the 3 sacred rules that he must follow in the Murim Police University, with the first being to evade the use of the Ghost King arts as much as possible and flee when asked about it, and the second was to keep wearing the Jade Ghosts at all times. The mother then insisted on these 2 points, before explaining how the third crucial rule was not to trust pretty girls. The last rule annoyed our hero, but the Lady of the Wunan didn't want to hear any of it, and with a pretty one finally in front of him, our hero was left in a deep conflict, as the third rule had now become even more annoying, when suddenly our hero noticed something getting close to his face. The projectile was so fast that it even smashed through the concrete wall. Taein managed to preserve his skull intact by instinctively dodging at the last minute, but was quickly left intrigued by the projectile being a yo-yo, and with a swift move from the hand of the wielder, the yo-yo was once again used to launch an attack. But luckily, the young man managed to dodge the devastating blows, before asking his attacker to unveil himself. Just then, the heavy weapon was slammed into the ground, marking the arrival of Iljin Oh, Pal Jang, and Hannah Lee, the 3 hitmen of the Black Death sect. Pal Jang asked our hero if he likes movies, which the confused Taein found weird to ask before a fight, and so the man upped his battle axe, channeled Kai into his fingers, and with that began to play his guitar, unleashing a powerful Kai-enhanced sound wave. Our confused hero then realized, as the beam next to him was suddenly cut, that he had to evade Pal Jang's attack. Taein, who didn't dodge unscratched, was shocked to see the man use the sound arts, a fighting style that relies on sounds. Before blocking the yo-yo at the last second, Eugene-Oh managed to knock the protagonist a few feet, and as our hero realized that he was in a 3 versus 1, Hannah Lee entered the scene. Taein barely dodged her blade, but was then caught by surprise as the woman used her implanted circle to change her trajectory and kick him in the guts, sending him flying into the nearby wall. Hannah Lee then threw her blade with all her might, aiming for our hero's neck as he dodged it at the last second. But the woman wasn't done just then as she charged our hero with a flying kick. Yet the quick Taein managed to escape her once again. Just then, Eugene-Oh decided to seize this opportunity, ultimately binding our hero with his strings, leaving him to fall immobilized to the ground, prey to the upcoming attack. But just as he was about to meet his end, the giant spinning blade was parried by a single strike of the katana. The senior made it just in time to rescue her partner. Our embarrassed hero felt glad that she arrived. Jihu then began to scold Taein for engaging in combat on his own, as it will only cause trouble for her. When suddenly the girl was caught off guard by a voice addressing her. After catching her blade, Hannah Lee pointed out how the girl began to look out for the others. Jihu was shocked as a familiar face appeared among the 3 members of the Black Death sect. Hannah Lee affirmed that a miserable destiny awaited her due to someone who abandoned their sect in order to enroll in college, before asking the girl if she had finally matured after her mother's passing. Jihu felt completely alerted, as Hannah Lee charged at her in order to test her strength. With that, the 2 mirror mists clashed blades, with the Murim patrol member struggling to repel Hannah's blade, and with that was knocked away a few feet. This made the hitman point out how Jihu didn't progress at all, speculating that it was due to her spending too much time with her tied-up lover. Our hero desperately tried to free himself, when suddenly his binds were tightened up. According to Eugene-Oh, his strings tense up after sensing ki. With that, the angry Jihu denied being in a relationship with the protagonist. This made Hannah Lee call her out for her usual bad temper. Before launching her giant shuriken once again, Jihu managed to parry it with ease, and with it knocked into the air, the lady charged at her unarmed foe, but Hannah Lee quickly resorted to a backflip to dodge the slash. The girl asked the second year if she was aware of her own flaw, as she grabbed the blade with her feet. Hannah Lee affirmed that Jihu suffered from caring too much about the others, and with that she used her legs in order to launch her giant shuriken. Jihu stood ready with her blade, but to her surprise, the giant projectile passed right beside her, as it flew towards Taein. This left the girl startled, as her tied-up partner was once again the prey of the giant shuriken. But just then, Jihu trapped Hannah Lee's blade using her own, preventing Taein's injury by a hair, and with that finally immobilizing the giant shuriken. It was then pointed out that Jihu retained the same weakness. According to the hitman, the girl should have used that sword of hers to attack her while weaponless instead of saving her partner by stopping the blade itself. Hannah Lee firmly believed that this affection will lead Jihu to her demise in the world of Murim. With that being said, the yo-yo wielder decided to join the assault. Both law enforcers felt alarmed at the sight of numerous projectiles heading their way, and so Jihu firmly grabbed her sword, before successfully repelling every attack coming their way. The third hitman then began to play his battle guitar, before spinning on himself and launching a powerful slash of shockwaves. Taein tried to warn his senior about the enemy using the sound arts, and so she firmly grabbed the tip of her blade, before unleashing her might all at once, and just like that, Jihu managed to slice through the sound waves by creating a shockwave of her own. The hitman was thrilled, as it had been a long time since someone countered his sound arts. But the truth was that Jihu was almost exhausted. Taein, who was still struggling with his restraints, wished to free himself, as the 3 criminals would soon overpower his senior, when suddenly he had a brilliant idea. Just then, voices were heard near the battlefield, making the Black Death sect members think that their opponent's backup had arrived. With that, Hannah Lee firmly planted her blade into the ground, aiming to end the fight in a single move. Pal Jang was thrilled at the idea of using this technique, making the law enforcers fear the worst. With that, the giant shuriken was wicked in the air by Hannah Lee. Then came Oh's turn, who immediately wrapped his strings around it. With that, the third hitman jumped into the air, before smacking the shuriken into the ground with his battle axe. Taein asked his senior to leave him behind with no worries, as the 3 Miramists prepared a powerful strike. Yet to his surprise, the girl firmly planted her blade into the ground. As mentioned before, she would be greatly harmed if Taein were hurt under her care. With that, Jihu decided to block the upcoming moves. Despite his admiration toward the girl's resolve, Pal Jang confessed his doubts about her ability to take on their attack, and so he firmly grabbed the strings and jumped backwards in order to stretch them as much as possible. With that, the first act closing verse began. The great blast known as Ensemble Tune was finally unleashed. Yet Jihu stood firm in front of the attack, its light almost blinding her. The arriving Murim Patrol squad members were then shocked by the sudden explosion that occurred. She was the child of the great guardian of the Black Death sect, Yahello. She ran as fast as she could with her naked feet, in total disbelief, and when she finally arrived, doctors stood silent over the bed. But just then, her heart flatlined. The girl arrived too late. Tears began to go down her face. Jihu had lost her mom. Sadness and grief choked her heart, when suddenly her attention was drawn elsewhere, as her father arrived with a woman around his hand. Jihu was in complete disbelief, as this was none other than her father's vassal, Inaba. The trembling girl then called out her merciless father in anger. Jihu couldn't accept the fact that her father arrived with the one that caused her mother's death. Yahello then coldly slapped his daughter, making the picture fall on the ground. The great guardian couldn't tolerate the tone of his own daughter, Jihu. But the girl was so disgusted that she couldn't bear to hear her father call her by her own name. At that moment, Jihu considered herself to be an orphan regarding both parents. With that, the girl left her father behind. Later, with a training sword in hand, Jihu charged headfirst, defeating the first of two foes before dodging the second, hitting him with her wooden sword, adjusting her posture before delivering the finishing kick. Her name was then recalled. The first examiner pointed out her great skills despite not being of a known sect. As for the second, he asked her for the reason behind her will to enter their university, and after a small silence, Jihu replied by saying vengeance. The girl with cold eyes affirmed that she was after vengeance. This triggered the two men, as the Murem Patrol Police University was a sacred school for one to sharpen his mind and soul for the sake of society. The man affirmed that this was the true Murem Patrol University and firmly warned the girl about entering it with a heart full of revenge. But Jihu affirmed that she ignored this fact, and that she would have never come if she was aware that the MPU was such a boring college, leaving with the examiners annoyed. Yet Jin and Kang had other plans in mind, and as Jihu walked herself to the exit, she suddenly stopped, as a dark presence crept up behind her. But as she turned to confront it, the girl couldn't find the origin of this murderous intention, when suddenly it appeared once again behind her. The alerted girl tried to immediately slash it. Jin and Kang then complimented the girl on her advanced key detection, before asking her if she acquired the skill from training or by the potential given to her by her father. The chief of the police recognized Jihu as the daughter of the great guardian of the Black Death sect. With that, the girl asked the old man what he saw from her. According to him, the MPU judges based on skill, not descendants, that the way one uses their skills is fundamental. Jihu was then shocked when the man affirmed that those skills could be used to kill someone. Jin and Kang offered to assist Jihu with her vengeance in exchange for becoming his personal assassin, but the girl quickly declined, as she had no intention of becoming a criminal like the Great Guardian. But as she was about to resume her way, Jin and Kang understood the situation. With that, the man affirmed that he couldn't dispose of someone as talented as her, giving Jihu the green light. Just like that, the girl was in debt to the old man. This marked Jihu's enrollment into the Murem Police University. And despite noticing her comrade's secret judging eyes, the girl didn't mind them, having planned to take down her father alone. Jihu was determined to become the one pinnacle of skills, having always stood alone. This was her way of life before meeting our hero, who she regretted getting entangled with, as he was always attracting problems. Back to the present, Jihu couldn't believe her eyes, as Taeyam used his own body to protect her. Our hero, who felt relieved to see the girl safe, suddenly lost consciousness. To the girl's horror, Taeyin fell right before her eyes. That night, the Murem Patrol Squad private hospital. The doctor was amazed. Lee Gaijiuk was also shocked, but Jihu quickly pushed him out of the way. The doctor then explained that the boy would be back on his feet after a good night of sleep, having collapsed due to overuse of ki rather than pain. Jihu had a hard time believing that the boy remained free of injuries after facing the powerful combined attack on his own. According to the doctor, the boy must be one of a kind, as life was a never-ending spiral of surprises. After that, as the two of them remained alone, Jihu began to think of how Hannah Lee shouldn't be entangled in the affairs of the Ancient Moon Squad, having been expelled from her father's sect. But just then, someone called her name. But it was just our hero talking in his sleep. Jihu still couldn't comprehend the boy's actions, as back then when he saved her, before collapsing, Jihu heard an excited laugh. The guitar wielder was amazed to see their finishing blow being countered by a knife, while his colleague was shocked to see Taeyin free of his restraints. With that, the three hitmen decided to leave. Jihu tried to place them under arrest, when a sudden smoke explosion occurred. Hannah Lee affirmed that they had all the time in the world, as they were meant to cross paths once again. And with that, the lady bid Jihu farewell. The doubtful girl needed to clear her doubts. Lee Gaijiuk was shocked to see her leave so soon, as she ordered him to regain the dorm with Taeyin after he wakes up while she deals with some unfinished matters. At the underground PM manufacturing facility of the Black Death sect, the said drug was being produced in great numbers. The workers did their best to control its quality as they assembled it. But just then, the man supervising the process received a call. This left the Great Guardian shocked, as he picked up and affirmed that he didn't expect to be on the receiving end of this call. Jaeho speculated that his child finally wanted to talk to him. Yet Jihu immediately jumped to business and asked the man if he was assisting the Ancient Moon Squad. But the man affirmed that he was ignorant on this subject. Jihu then asked him about Hannah, who previously worked for him, and about her association with the delinquents. Jaeho tried to recall the name, and after finally remembering it, he reminded her that he banished her from the organization. But Jihu couldn't trust him, as according to her, he could have been made a fool by his vassal. But the Great Guardian firmly affirmed that he had nothing to do with Hannah Lee after banishing her. The carts carrying the boxes of PM were noisy. After hearing them, the girl hoped that her father didn't lie to her. Jihu then affirmed that she will be the first one after him if he ever commits a crime before hanging up the call. With that, the Great Guardian took his phone off of his ear, as the seed of doubt was planted in his mind. The chain was rusted, being swung fast, had incredible speed. This chain was the weapon used by the humanoid monster at the Iron Stallion Security Headquarters distribution warehouse. The beast easily slashed cars clean off. This atrocity was none other than Test Subject 13, a secret weapon of the assassin sect. The truck drivers were shocked to see a single monster appearing out of nowhere and giving them such a hard time. The blonde one was amused by the screams as the monster was easily crumbling a security company. This was none other than the vice leader of the assassin sect, who grew fond of the beast, when suddenly his phone began to ring. Sebastian was left annoyed by the caller having interrupted his fun. The old man revealed the appearance of an issue. After being asked to get straight to the point, the old man revealed that the issue concerned the Murim Patrol Squad, as one of their agents single-handedly caused the arrest of multiple Ancient Moon Squad members. The vice leader didn't expect less from the Miramists protecting order, yet was still impressed by the feat of this single person. Sebastian speculated that the delinquent gang lost due to their inexperience as teenagers. The beast then charged in, as the old man stated that the Ancient Moon Squad weren't properly educated regarding combat and that they weren't very bright. According to him, this arrest will cause a problematic shortage of men. This triggered Sebastian, as the expendable delinquents shouldn't impact his business. Just then, the truck drivers decided to defend their company from the beast by using the Iron Stallion 4-directional attack. With that, Test Subject 13 found himself surrounded by the trucks, who all tried to crash into him all at once. The old man affirmed that the delinquents lost their will to fight after suffering such an embarrassing defeat at the hands of a single man. This amused the vice leader of the assassin sect, as one loss shouldn't impact their morale, and with that, he decided to personally take care of the one they are so afraid of. Just then, the 4 truck drivers tried to take the monster from above, charging at him all at once, descending upon him like bullets of rain. With that, Sebastian got up, promising his teacher to defeat the protagonist, which pleased the old man. As for the truck driver's ultimate attack, the man was left sweating and shivering in fear, as even Kakena's break before piercing the monster's skin. The beast then noticed an approaching sound of applause. Sebastian was pleased with the scientist's work, as the weapon was nearly invincible. The vice leader then ordered the monster to bow. After staying still for a short moment, the atrocity began to move, ultimately kneeling in front of the blonde one. This obedience pleased Sebastian, who had a special task in mind for Test Subject number 13. The next morning had dawned with our heroes back to their training. Lee Gaijiok advised our hero to skip the morning run today, having gotten out of the hospital recently, but the young man affirmed that he had to run every day. With that, the boy called out his friend for acting so pretentiously after doing great on his first day. This made Taeyeon think of the past day, and how powerful the 3 hitmen with odd fighting styles were, and how one meets a lot of martial experts at college. And after seeing the burden that he was yesterday, our hero began to wonder about a way to become more powerful. Taeyeon then recalled his Ghost King martial arts, but quickly brushed it off as he only resorted to his grandfather's art in order to deal with the emergency that was the Ancient Moon Squad. Taeyeon's face then turned bright red when Lee Gaijiok spotted Jihu. The girl was doing her morning run, looking as stunning as ever. This beauty turned our amazed hero into a walking tomato. Having noticed his blush, his roommate began to tease him about his lover fantasies after spending some time with their senior. With that, Taeyeon tried to quickly silence the boy, when suddenly Lee Gaijiok called Jihu with his loud voice, intriguing the girl. Just as the boy was about to reveal his roommate's secret to the girl, she claimed to not see Taeyeon. The protagonist had suddenly vanished from the scene. Taeyeon decided to run from the embarrassment while being pissed off at Lee Gaijiok. The protagonist was certain that his friend will die single and alone. As he was about to pick a snack, the young man noticed that he was a dime short, and so he began to search for a coin, as people tend to lose dimes near vending machines. Just then, he spotted a shiny coin on the ground. Taeyeon went to happily pick it up, only to be met with a smack to the hand. The sudden pain was so unexpected that the protagonist began to swear in agony. The stick managed to hit his bones. Just then, the man affirmed that this was his property. Taeyeon couldn't be more confused. The weird-looking man affirmed it once again. With that, the defeated hero decided to leave the dime to its odd owner. This pissed off Taeyeon as he began his day by coming face-to-face with a drunk. The man took a big gulp of his drink. Taeyeon then stopped as the man asked him if he was finally reunited with his father. Our hero couldn't be more shocked when he suddenly received a broom to the face, leaving our hero annoyed as he didn't expect to be smacked like that. But to his surprise, the drunk had already resumed his way. The young man then asked the alcoholic if he was an acquaintance of his father. Yet the man stayed silent as he kept on walking and drinking. The drunk was once again far from our hero, who was trying to get his attention. Taeyeon then realized that the walking man was gaining distance despite running toward him. Our hero was left triggered as the drunk entering the building suddenly turned his back on him after dropping such an intriguing question. The protagonist decided to follow him inside. But to his surprise, the building was filled with an ominous void. This intrigued our hero, as this dark place should be the gym, when suddenly a mysterious light appeared behind him. A shady figure called him out for being so dense despite being the grandson of the Ghost King. Our hero was left in complete disbelief, as an exact copy of himself appeared claiming that it would take his place. With that, Taeyeon decided to kick it in the face, but to his surprise, the fake quickly dodged his flying kick. Before using his baton to smack him in the back, the copy began to laugh as it strongly advised the young man to keep his calm. Our hero couldn't be more annoyed when he was suddenly met once again with darkness. Taein felt alerted as he lost sight of his opponent, when suddenly his stick came flying at high speed, attacking our surprise hero from every direction. The protagonist couldn't be more confused as he couldn't sense the start point of the copy's attacks. Taein tried to dodge, yet was still getting hit despite his best effort. The imposter then went for a thrust. Our hero, who was in great pain, began to think that the fake was manipulating the length of his staff and how he got struck from a random angle after supposedly dodging the baton. With that, the laughing imposter suggested that the young man use the broom in hand in order to fight back. This made Taein realize that he was armed all along. The copy then went for another thrust, pouring great power into his strike. The fake was beginning to get disappointed by the protagonist's performance, but just then he realized that he had only struck the broom. Just then the fake received a talon to the face. Taein had used the broom as a shield, a distraction, and even a pivoting point in order to launch a successful counterattack. The boy then thanked the imposter for his great advice, and so he jumped at the copy with the broom in his hand, ultimately striking him in the head. Upon hitting the ground, our hero's weapon broke. The laughing copy remained silent as it suddenly disappeared, satisfied. Taein was then hit on the head before he could comprehend the situation. The drunk from before had knocked him out cold. With that, the mysterious man said that the young Kang was not a child anymore. Our hero then opened his eyes, only to wake up on the floor of the gym. The confused young man assumed the incident to be a simple dream, but just then he noticed the broken broom next to him, confirming the fact that he had just fought a dark copy of himself, when suddenly our hero's head was smacked by an alcohol bottle. Taeyeon was surprised to see the drunk from before above him, and so he began to yell at the man, demanding answers about the weird incident that occurred. But the old man just thrust his bottle into the young man's loud mouth in order to shut it up as he asked him to come with him. After they arrived behind the garbage dump of the MPU, the young man decided to confront the drunk and ask him if he truly was an acquaintance of his father, and was shocked when the drunk affirmed that he was. Taeyeon then asked the man to speak to him about his father. Taeyeon, who hardly knew his father, revealed that he entered the Marine Patrol University in order to find him. Our frustrated hero came here seeking any lead that could get him to his missing parent. With that, Taeyeon begged the man to tell him about his father's whereabouts. After taking a good look at the determined young man, the drunk began to complain about his back pain to the protagonist's surprise. The man then began to lament about his impossible duty to clean all this mess today. And just as Taeyeon tried to ask his question once again, a man complained about his back once again as he loudly wished for a helping hand, before turning to our hero with a smiling face and asking him if he will be this helping hand. And so the annoyed hero agreed to execute the simple chore in exchange for speaking to him about his father. Taeyeon was then filled with rage as the old man ditched him in order to get some sleep. The protagonist was very annoyed as the old man could simply tell him what he wants to know. But just as he was about to start sweeping, the trash moved out of the broom's way. The confused Taeyeon didn't understand it at first, and so he tried once again, only to be met with the same result. The protagonist couldn't believe it, as the trash was fleeing the broom as if it were a living being. Our angry hero, who had his doubts about this task, realized that this was the doing of the drunk, and so he began to think of how the broom would surely not work normally while relating the moving trash to the fake copy of himself inside the gym. With that being said, the boy began to wonder if he was supposed to use his Kai, and so he gathered his inner energy, concentrating it all in the broom. With that, our hero finally managed to reach the trash, putting it where he wanted. Taeyeon was overjoyed by this sight as the trash could be cleaned up by Ki. With that, the boy swept another ball of trash, landing it once again where he wanted. Yet something didn't feel right, as the trash from earlier had suddenly disappeared. Taeyeon had a hard time understanding, and so he tried to work faster, until finally reaching exhaustion. In the end, the protagonist returned to square one. Taeyeon then noticed that there was more trash on the ground compared to when he began sweeping. Seeing this, the old man pointed out the boy's incompetence and advised him to sweep all the trash with a single brush, leaving our hero shocked. This made Taeyeon think and theorize that the task would be completed after creating one giant lump of trash, and so he decided to pour even more chai into the broom. With that, he raised his broom and smashed it into the ground. With that, the lumps of trash began to levitate toward the same direction. Taeyeon tried to create a typhoon around his broom, gathering all the trash in a single point. The task was almost completed, when suddenly the hero let go of the broom, before falling to the ground. Taeyeon's ki was too weak to be unleashed all at once. Just then, the boy was smacked in the face by a packet of instant noodles. The old man proposed to share a meal with the boy. Meanwhile, at the residence of Iron Sand Palm Yongbyum Jin of the Black Death Sect, the three hitmen confirmed the fact that a single individual resulted in the arrest of numerous Ancient Moon squad members. The terrorists explained how amazing it was to see one man countering their combined attack with a simple knife. This intrigued the Iron Sand Palm, who grew curious about the identity of this Miramist. But his vassal affirmed to him that he already knew him. Yongbyum Jin then turned around to grab the tablet, and was shocked to discover that the said man was Taeyeon Kang. The Iron Sand Palm, who tasked the assassin sect to take care of the boy, was shocked to see the one that got out of his head still running loose. This made Yongbyum Jin reconsider Taeyeon, as he mistook him for an idiot after seeing him reveal a secret technique on the internet. Just then, the man realized that something wasn't right, as back then Viper had almost lost his mind after interacting with the young man. and seeing how he blocked the ensemble tune that even the master's fear. On top of being the object of convoy of the master, the man began to reflect on the situation, before cracking a smile as he finally reached a conclusion. The man then asked his vassal to prepare the car as they were heading to the MPU, to Yanggu's surprise. The Iron Sand Palm decided to personally evaluate the promising young hero. An appealing bowl of ramen was prepared. Our hero was thrilled by its magnificent look, and so he dipped his chopsticks into the bowl. Before taking a big bite, a smile appeared on the drunk's face as he began to recall a similar incident. Back then, the man dipped inside the noodles in a similar way. Before taking the same big bite, the younger drunk looked carefully, surprised to see the man enjoy his food in such a battlefield. As he slurped the soup, the man affirmed that he was only rescuing those who fell prey to the Ghost King, pointing out how they would meet their end while searching for the infamous specter. Before recalling his weapon, with that, our hero's father swore that none shall fall victim to the Ghost King while he was still breathing. The drunk then began to rub his scar before pointing out that the 3 spirit blades that belonged to the man's father were now in his friend's possession despite inflicting him with an ugly scar along with possessing a dark key. The mirror mist affirmed that weapons weren't necessarily good or bad as they were only tools for their users. The young drunk then pointed out how the acts of the Ghost King weren't worthy of forgiveness, before revealing his curiosity towards his innocent friend who chose to bring redemption to the Ghost King's name, which could lead to his demise. With that, the Miramisk was asked if he was truly obligated to walk this difficult path. After a small silence, the young Kang affirmed with a warm smile that he was. This shocked the drunk. With that being said, he ordered the man to leave after finishing his meal as it was hard to look at him. But just as Davang Hong was about to leave the scene, the man asked him for a favor. Just then, the drunk was snapped back to reality by the son of his friend sitting in a similar way and asking for a way to use his little kai in order to complete the task. Dabang Hong looked with amazement as he finally understood what his friend wanted, leaving Taeyin confused. When suddenly the man's phone began to ring, it was a message from someone asking him for help. With that, the drunk exited the scene as our hero asked him for some instruction, leaving him with no means to ease his task. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the campus, a young man was struggling to carry many boxes. Lee Gaijiok was angry with the mysterious disappearance of Taeyin as it had thrown all the work on his shoulders. But just then, he bumped into someone, making him fall onto the ground, leaving the young man more annoyed by his bad day as he wondered who he had bumped into. To his surprise, a bald mountain of muscles wearing glasses stood firm in front of him. Lee Gaijiok was then grabbed by the neck. Just like that, the Iron Sand Palm had put his claws on the protagonist's friend. Meanwhile, our hero was still trying to sweep the trash away. He tried to use a shovel, only for it to get stuck on the ground and hit him in the stomach. The young man even tried using heavy machinery and fell exhausted to the ground. Taeyin failed to accomplish any progress whatsoever as he was unable to think of a way to clean them all at once. Our annoyed hero then began to complain about the scared man who left without a single clue. His stomach then began to rumble. Our hero, who twirled all of his ramen before eating it in one big bite, began to wish for a second bowl, when suddenly he got an idea. And so, by recalling how he twirled all the noodles, and how the drunk advised him to throw away all lumps of trash at the same time, the protagonist finally figured out a solution to his problem. By recalling his last attempt to use Kid, our hero realized how forcing a great amount of himself wasn't efficient, and so he decided to treat his inner energy like noodles and twirl it with the broom. With that, the trash began once again to fly at high speed. Taeyin had created a small tornado around himself, focusing as much as possible on visualizing the task, before finally slamming the broom into the ground. Taeyin had finally succeeded, as he finally managed to gather all lumps of trash into one giant lump. The protagonist was then amazed by the fact the ball didn't crumble like last time, when suddenly something caught his attention. Our hero was left surprised as despite having used more inner energy than before, his body felt at ease. As the cab began to spread around his body, the young man began to forget the reason behind his struggle. With that, Taeyin decided to put himself to the test. And so the young Kang prepared himself to throw a powerful punch, only to be interrupted by the ring of his phone. The annoyed Taeyin quickly checked his messages. This was his roommate asking him to join him in a certain parking lot, leaving our hero utterly confused. Once there, Taeyin began to look for the boy, yet he was unable to find him. Just then, a loud noise attracted his attention and piqued his curiosity. Yet as he tried to trace the noise back to the source, Taeyin couldn't believe his horrified eyes, as this noise was the sound of 2 men beating up a student. Taeyin had finally found his friend. Lee Gaijiok was in a pitiful state. The red hand then mercilessly grabbed his skull. The Iron Sand Palm was pleased with the arrival of the descendant of the ghost. Taeyin was now facing one of the 4 great guardians of the Black Death sect along with his vassal. The young man then fell to the ground. Our hero was infuriated by his friend's state. This made the man in the red suit praise Taeyin for his bond with Lee Gaijiok, who refused to comply with them in order to set him a trap. The beaten-up young man urged his roommate to flee. The Iron Sand Palm then reassured our hero by affirming that Lee Gaijiok would remain alive as he was only here to clear his doubts. With that, the man demanded to see the ghostly spirit wave. This shocked the protagonist, who refused to comply with the evil man's demand. This left the Iron Sand Palm no other choice than to raise his foot and use it to break the beaten-up one's bone, making him scream in agonizing pain, as according to him, this should encourage him to unleash the spirit wave. This enraged the boy, who unleashed a quick barrage of attacks on the aggressor, who blocked them all. Taeyeon then prepared himself, before unleashing a powerful attack that the Great Guardian didn't have any problem blocking. This made our hero realize that his offense had no effect on this new foe. The vassal was well aware that a child like Taeyeon could never take on his master with such pitiful moves. With that, the man in red pulled the boy by the leg, before asking him to keep this foolery for the university's talent show, and smacking him with a powerful punch to the face, which sent him flying into a wall. The punch was so powerful that the young man struggled to get back on his feet. With a smile on his face, the man affirmed, the Miramist of the Black Death sect affirmed, that he was only here to see the ghostly spirit wave. The boy then recalled how his mother asked him to avoid the use of the Ghost King's martial arts along with anybody who was curious about them. The man in red then stepped once again on Lee Gejuk's broken leg, making him experience great pain once again. The evil one hoped to use the boy as a trigger for the spirit wave. Seeing this made our hero order the coward to keep the fight between the two of them. The Great Guardian was shocked to be called as such. Taeyeon then claimed that his opponent didn't want to see his special move but feared it instead, which is why he kept standing next to the injured young man, before implying that the man in red was scared of him, which is why he was using Lee Gajok as a meat shield. This left a dark expression on the Iron Sand Palm, who immediately ordered his vassal to take their hostage away. As he began to walk towards our hero, the man in red affirmed that this was the reason why the likes of Taeyeon never prosper, as despite lacking experience and having to rely on their intelligence, beginners like him lack common sense. After putting on his brass knuckles, the evil Miramist affirmed that this type always tried to get on the nerves of an opponent whose strength they hadn't asserted, as they had no way to assume the weight of their own mistakes. Seeing how regular strikes didn't work on the powerful gangster, our hero decided to enhance his attack speed and ki. With that, the protagonist decided to test what he had just learned by channeling his kai into a single point. And with a quick move, Taeyeon landed his first successful punch. The Iron Sand Palm couldn't comprehend it, as it was now his turn to be sent flying into a wall. Yangbu had a hard time believing that his master was pushed back by Taeyeon, who he assumed was just the average martial artist. Yet the vassal had completely misjudged the boy. Taeyeon was then shocked by the man in red, who quickly got back on his feet. This left the gangster impressed as he asked Taeyeon if his ego was due to him thinking that this punch could actually hurt him. Yet our hero decided to taunt his opponent once again by claiming that the Ghost King's spirit wave was too much for the likes of him. This triggered the Iron Sand Palm, who pointed out how confident his opponent had grown after landing a single strike. With that, the man in red closed the distance in a matter of instants, making Taeyeon realize how quick he is, before using his fingers to slash him. Just like that, our hero found himself the victim of a painful slash. This was the Iron Sand Palm's technique called the Slashing Tiger Claw. The man in red then kept on trying to slash his injured opponent, who was desperately trying to avoid any additional cuts, after being knocked a few feet away. While being asked by the bloodlusted man to use the secret technique, our hero charged in, determined to take on the Iron Sand Palm with his quick kicks. The vassal watching from afar knew very well that his boss, who was strong enough to treat iron like paper, never gives his opponent a chance to rest. Meanwhile, Taeyeon began to think of how every blow that the man lands creates a new injury, and how his opponent was so fast that he was unable to catch his breath. Our hero then evaded the claw that targeted his face, before trying to punch his adversary in the face only for him to easily dodge. With that, the red hand grabbed the startled young man, before wounding him with the Slashing Tiger Claw technique. With that, our hero was left with a bleeding arm, making him realize that the ghostly spirit wave was his only path to victory. Yet Taeyeon was well aware that the Great Guardian was fast enough to evade it, which is why he had to immobilize him first. But despite that, the losing hero struggled to find a way to restrict the man's moves. Taeyeon then realized that he had to make some sacrifices in order to guarantee his victory. The protagonist then evaded a flying kick, before trying to hit the gangster with a spinning kick, only to fail miserably. The man then jumped into the air, before grabbing the young man by the back and asking him once again to show him his secret technique, flipping him off his feet into the air, and suplexing his face into the ground. With that, Taeyeon was left to experience agonizing pain. According to the Miramist of the Black Death sect, violence was the only way to reason with children. But just as he began to explain how he would leave the young at the edge of death, he suddenly found his neck grabbed. With that, Taeyeon cracked a sneaky smile, before asking the man to hold his horses, as he was about to taste the secret blast that he begged so much for. The blast was so powerful that it almost blinded the vassal, who grew worried about his superior, when suddenly, Taeyeon appeared from behind the smoke, before bombarding the bald man with a barrage of strikes and punches. With that, our hero channeled his strength in order to hit Yangbu with a powerful double palm. The vassal couldn't believe it, as he was sent flying to the ground. With that, our hero had avenged Lee Gaijuk, when suddenly, a mysterious voice revealed its disappointment, as a car charged at him out of nowhere, slamming our hero into the wall. The impact was so powerful that the protagonist began to cough blood. Taeyeon was shocked as the doubts of the one standing on top of the car were confirmed. The Iron Sand Palm was now certain that the Great Ghost King was but a myth. Our hero was amazed as the man in red remained on his feet after being hit with his secret technique in the face. The gangster revealed having great expectations for the young man as he was hoping to taste the power of the legendary Ghost King. Yet now he was certain that it was just a rumor created by the elderly to remain in power. With that, the man pointed at our hero, affirming that he was only a kid and the descendant of a man overestimated by all. The angry protagonist couldn't hear it anymore, as he smashed the front of the car with both of his hands, ultimately surprising the Iron Sand Palm, before charging up a powerful punch and unleashing all of its might at the one that blocked at the last second. But the older one was startled as the power of the punch was increased. With that, Taeyin was able to knock back the dark Muramist, before affirming that he shouldn't judge what he didn't know. As he regained footing, the man stated that even the most worthless of foes would fight once against the wall. With that, the Iron Sand Palm charged once again at our hero. Taeyin managed to dodge the flying kick at the last moment, before bombarding him with a barrage of punches. Yet this wasn't enough to take down Yeonbeom, who quickly riposted by kicking the boy. Our hero realized how durable his opponent was, which is why he needed an attack that surpassed the ghostly spirit weapon, when suddenly he was caught off guard, as he was on the edge of the car. With that, Yeonbeom decided to take this opportunity and charge with his slashing tiger claws, landing a clean hit on our hero. The Iron Sand Palm then decided to use verse 1 of chapter 3 of the Black Demon hidden art technique, also known as the finger whirling flower, allowing him to hit our hero in the guts with devastating power. With that, Taeyin suffered a pain like none before. The blast knocked him off his feet and dragged him a few meters away. With that, Taeyin, who was in great pain, began to lose hope as his signature move was rendered ineffective against this foe. Yeonbeom then asked the boy if he was ready to give up as he struggled to get back on his feet. Having guessed his young opponent's thoughts, the Iron Sand Palm was left amused. Since the ghostly spirit wave was a technique that focuses on ki release, it would surely pale against endurance, the heart of the martial arts, according to him. According to the gangster, only strength and violence mattered in a fight. With physical power being the center of it all, the winner of the fight would always be the one left on his feet. This made the vassal think of how his superior couldn't suffer critical damage due to the durability he gained during his hellish training. With that, Yeonbeom decided to end the fight with Taeyin alive for the amusement that he offered. Yet, in order to carve his lessons into the loser's brain, the man decided to amputate Lee Gaejek's leg. The horrified hero couldn't believe his own 2 ears. With that, the man ordered his vassal to proceed. Yeongo decided to immediately execute the given order. Seeing this, Taeyin charged to save his friend. Yet his punch was easily intercepted, which made the Iron Sand Palm call him an idiot, as his strikes could never damage his body. With that, the man in red twisted the boy's arm, and as he bombarded the protagonist with punches, Yeonbeom affirmed that he should have accepted his kindness and silently escaped. The Iron Sand Palm then prepared his claws for the finishing blow before calling our hero an idiot with no redemption. But the young man managed to escape death at the last moment, and so Taeyin let out a great scream. Before reversing the roles to the Black Death sect Muramist's shock, Yeonbeom couldn't believe that his arm was bent over. With that, Taeyin charged up a new attack. This was the sublime version of the ghostly spirit wave. The man couldn't believe it, as he was struck with a revolving ghostly spirit wave from up close. The attack was so strong that it made every car nearby get caught in an invisible typhoon. This made the vassal fear the worst for his great guardian. Just like that, Yeonbeom had been driven deeply into the wall. Seeing this, the exhausted protagonist fell on his back. With that, the relieved protagonist began to laugh as he had finally won. Or so he thought, as a noise began to come out of the hole. Just then, the villain's hands came out of the wall. With that, his jewelry and brass knuckles were broken to pieces, leaving the shards to fall on the ground. More triggered than ever, Yeonbeom decided to show the boy who truly talked more than he acted, as he activated the 10th star of the Black Demon art, also known as the Red Wing of the Black Snake. With that, the Iron Sand Palm was ready to unleash his true strength. The red man was enshrouded with an ominous aura. This feeling that cuts deep into our hero's flesh was very familiar, as it resembled the killing intent of the mask. Yeonbeom was amused by the protagonist's expression, before pointing out that this moment of distraction was enough for him to land 5 punches. Just then, Taeyin coughed blood after suffering 5 simultaneous attacks. This left our horrified hero confused as he was unable to see the man striking him. The punches were so powerful that they made Taeyin get knocked back. As he moved at an incredible speed, Yeonbeom affirmed that he was pleased with the hero remaining awake after his small attacks. The protagonist couldn't be more horrified as he was unable to see his opponent moving. Taeyin tried to pointlessly fight back, only to be met with a quick barrage of punches. As he kept on attacking, Yeonbeom dared our hero to keep on fighting back. The desperate young man tried to gain some distance, only to be knocked back immediately by a punch to the guts. The Iron Sand Palm affirmed that distance didn't matter as he unleashed a 10th Black Demon art. Taeyin, who was getting damaged at a speed that outran the eye, tried to think of a solution. Yeonbeom pointed out how the hero lost that big mouth of his despite the fact that he bothered to go all out against him. With that, the Great Guardian expressed his disappointment by delivering a devastating punch to the young man's face, sending him flying into the air. As he caught up to him, Yeonbeom decided to finish the fight, and so he aimed for the young man's life. As he used his Red Wing of the Black Snake technique, the Flower Serpent's descending bite, in order to smack his young foe into the ground, leaving him in great pain as he began to recall a memory. Taeyin remembered when he was about to beat his grandfather in a video game. Taeyin wanted to end his grandfather with his spinning phoenix kick, but the old ghost only cracked a smile. To the young man's surprise, his master managed to block his combo, before counterattacking and ultimately winning the game. With that, the young one began to hate on the game, while the old one affirmed that he was just a bad player. Taeyeon then asked his grandfather how he kept beating him. And so the old ghost explained that against a powerful foe, one must not attack mindlessly but keep his calm and carefully analyze the battle. According to the young man, this wasn't easy to execute, so the old man explained that this was due to him only relying on his vision. The ghost affirmed that as soon as his grandson would use his entire body to sense his opponent's moves, he would be able to detect the weak spots in his defense. The weak spots that one must attack at all costs. With that, our hero was back to his beaten-up state in the present. The young man couldn't deny the fact that the gangster was a powerful mirrormist. He then recalled the old ghost's words about facing powerful opponents. With that, he finally understood what his master tried to teach him back then. And so our hero did his best to get up in front of his crimson opponent. This effort amazed Yeonbyeom. With that, Taeyeon admitted that the Iron Sand Palm was the strongest enemy he had ever faced. Yet as he firmly planted his foot into the ground, our hero affirmed that he shall be the victor of today's fight. With that, the Red One praised the protagonist's courage, yet affirmed that it was now futile, as he unleashed a rifle of punches upon him. After recalling his master's instruction on the use of the body to sense movements, Taeyeon began to move his body in a quick and odd way. The red fist was about to land, yet our hero evaded it by a hair. The vassal couldn't believe it, as well as his master, as none of his punches landed. Just then, Yeonbyeom found himself getting hit in the face and knocked back a few feet. Taeyeon affirmed that his grandfather, who the Iron Sand Palm talked ill about, taught him how to resort to his entire body in order to sense his movements, before asking the man about his opinion. This angered Yeonbyeom, who didn't want to hear any of it. With that, the Iron Sand Palm charged with his many lotus strike of the Red Wing the Black Serpent, and so our hero reacted quickly, as Yeonbyeom unleashed a fearsome barrage of attacks upon him. Seeing how the young man, who should be overpowered by the man in red's technique, began to dodge the punches, Yango realized that the boy had become different, and so our hero kept on dodging and evading. Filled with wrath, the Black Death sect Miramis affirmed that our hero was nothing but a worthless person whose martial arts were useless. And so he decided to resort to the 10th star of the Black Demon art, the full blue with a finger-whirling flower. Our hero stood immobile for a small instant, before disappearing from the strike's trajectory. Just then, Yeonbyeom was startled by a voice affirming that it wasn't worthless. This was none other than our hero, who used the split second of the attack in order to close the distance between the two of them. Taeyeon affirmed that he would be the victor of this fight, and as he recalled how his master instructed him to target the weak spots, the protagonist graced the Red One with a powerful uppercut, and so the young man poured all of his power into his fist, landing his strongest punch yet on the Great Guardian. Yango couldn't believe his eyes as a college university student made his master cough blood. Even Lee Gaijio couldn't believe his eyes. The gangster couldn't fight anymore. With that, the Iron Sand Palm lost his fight. The vassal rushed to help his master, but just then he stopped, as he felt a dark presence emitting from the victorious young man. The ghost had fallen to the ground, allowing the dark energy to manifest inside its user. Taeyeon's power began to rise. This startled the vassal, who was determined to get his superior to safety as fast as possible, when suddenly an ominous presence asked him to stand back. The scared Yango searched for the source of the voice. Meanwhile, our hero, who was almost consumed by the dark energy, began to stare at his defeated opponent. The ghost urged him to terminate the Iron Sand Palm, and was more than eager for the boy to do so. With that, Taeyeon began to recall how the man with the mischievous smile tortured his friend. Just like that, the bloodlust of the Ghost King urged the young one to pass judgment on the gangster, and so the possessed protagonist charged up his ki, determined to end the life of the Great Guardian. With that, our hero went to take his first life. The vassal, powerless, couldn't believe his eyes, when suddenly a quick move occurred, knocking Taeyeon off the man, before sending him flying at high speed into the wall. And while the bald man had a hard time understanding this sudden twist, the Ghost King was thrilled at the scent of the upcoming fight. The Miramis was surprised to see the young man able to stand after taking on her blast. This fighter was a lady. The master of the Black Death sect, Nation Ju, the Black Demon King, had finally met Kang Taeyeon. Back then, our hero's father found himself bowing to the Black Demon King, as he had finally achieved his goal. The master had taught the young man her fundamental Kai absorption technique, fulfilling her part of the deal, stating that he would have to fight her after absorbing the ghost. Yet the man stood silent, before affirming that he shall return soon as he left the throne room. Back to the present, as Nation Ju was about to take on the possessed young man, a dark aura filled with murderous intent began to emit from the young man. The Black Demon King was determined to punish his father for not fulfilling his promise to her. Just then, Taeyeon began to regain consciousness, but the Ghost King immediately intervened, ordering his host to slay every person he laid his eyes on. Taeyeon struggled to fight the tightening control of the Phantom. The master then recalled how she previously mistook Haku for the protagonist, before pointing out how Taeyeon possessed a greater amount of Ghost King energy than the other prodigy, and so she dared the boy to attack her, as he would be good practice for her before taking on the true Ghost King. With that, Taeyeon charged at the lady, when suddenly the man dashed, grabbed his head, before slamming him into the ground. This shocked the Black Demon King, as he grabbed the Coast of Jade. The angry Daebang Hong asked the young man if he truly wanted to become a killer as well, and so the earring was put back on its righteous owner, suppressing the mana of the Ghost King to the master of the Black Death sect's shock. The lady was shocked to see that the power of her promised adversary was fading away, before taking a good look at the drunk and recalling the one that stood behind the one that lied to her. The Black Demon King recognized Daebang Hong, who asked her about her identity as this person. His presence displeased the ancient Muramist, who felt glad that he was unable to unmask her due to her regaining her young body. Taking on the drunk in this parking lot would ultimately expose her identity along with ruining her plan to fight the Ghost King. This left the powerful master of the Black Death sect with one solution. Daebang Hong asked the girl to identify herself. But just then, the Black Demon King began to scream, to the man's surprise. As she began to cry, the master of the Black Death sect explained how the boy got injured while trying to protect her from the red-suited pervert and his bald acolyte. The vassal had a hard time understanding this sudden and false claim. But confusion was then replaced by shock as the girl asked him to flee by telepathy. The master then asked the bald one to tell Guardian Jin that he would be punished for messing with her toys. Having realized that the Grandmaster was the only one allowed to call his superior Guardian Jin, the vassal realized that the situation couldn't be more critical. And so Yeongo grabbed the defeated martial artist and began to make his escape. Daebang Hong tried to chase them, when suddenly a wounded hand grabbed him by the pants. The drunk was shocked to see that this was Taein, who began to beg him to rescue his friend Gaijeok, before ultimately succumbing to the fatigue and pain. After that, at the private hospital of the Murin Patrol Squad, the Black Demon King sat beside our wounded hero. The master began to think as she finally crossed paths with Kang Taein, when suddenly she was left distracted by our hero's great physique. After touching his muscle with the tip of her finger, the Black Demon King was left amazed as the boy possessed the body of the perfect Muramist. The excited old lady was certain that the young man would reach the pinnacles of Murim with the right training. But just as she was about to turn him over in order to look at his back, our hero suddenly woke up and found her on top of him, when suddenly a worried Jihu entered the room, only to stumble upon an awkward scene. With a dark gaze in her eyes, the girl asked for an explanation. With that, an awkward silence reigned in the room. This left our hero trembling in fear. Jihu tried to analyze the situation and immediately deduced that the lady was doing some despicable acts. This annoyed the Black Demon King, as it had been a long time since she had to meet with the likes of Jihu. Taein tried to explain himself in a burst of panic, stating that a total stranger was messing with his unconscious body, when suddenly the lady covered his mouth. The master then claimed that Taein had no right to judge her for acting as such after what he did to her body, leading Jihu to completely misread the situation. And so the second year, who came here to check on her partner, decided to exit the room, but as our hero tried to explain the situation, the girl with dark eyes wished the both of them a great life. With that, the injured young man jumped out of his bed in order to clarify things to his senior. Meanwhile, the Black Demon King looked at them with interest as she was amused by their youth. At the same time on campus, the master of the Black Death sect passed herself off as a first-year transfer student from the Blackest Deceit sect named Sinanwan, which intrigued the man. Daebang Hong wasn't certain about the sect mentioned in the girl's profile. Despite not raising suspicions, the drunk was convinced that the girl seemed familiar. Just then, someone greeted Master Hong after a long time. Jin and Kang corrected himself by calling the man Professor Hong. Anger and repulse began to fill the man's eyes, as he just walked by the chief of the police with a simple nod. Daebang Hong then suddenly stopped as the man asked him about his refusal to re-enter the Murim Alliance. But the man ignored the question and asked Jin and Kang if he truly believed that his reign built on power would prosper. The chief of the police responded by affirming the Murimist's respect towards strength before asking the professor if he was still upset about this. Daebang Hong couldn't accept the fact that all who were part of the alliance were obliged to learn the 3 martial arts of the Wudang, making Jinin imply that Wudang had the superior fighting arts. Yet the drunk, who was repulsed by the man's pride, was well aware of his intentions to increase the influence of Wudang by forcing his martial arts. Jinin affirmed that he was only allowed to do so due to the weakness of the Murimists. With that, Daebang Hong began to resume his way while pointing out that an era of peace forced by power will be plunged into chaos by power, when suddenly a loud laugh began to echo in the hallway to his surprise. Daebang Hong was paralyzed by Jinin's overwhelming murderous intent, as he was certain that none could plunge his era into chaos, especially him. But just as he turned to confront the man, the chief of the police had disappeared, with his loud laugh still echoing through the hallway, leaving him frustrated. Meanwhile, at the hospital, our hero couldn't be more annoyed as a complete stranger made his superior completely misunderstand the situation, with no idea how to find a solution. But just then he noticed that he was in front of the room of his friend, and Sir Taein burst into the room in order to check on Gaijeok, only to find a man with long white hair in front of his bed. The man then turned to look at our hero with his overwhelming presence. Our hero was left paralyzed by the immense pressure. The boy then presented his friend to his father. This made the man realize that the protagonist was the one who was beside his son during the incident. Taein was then startled by the man placing his hand on his shoulder and thanking him for saving his child. With that, the man left the scene. Lee Gaijeok presented the man as his father. The man was Jimin Lee, the leader of the Flower Mountain sect, who was surnamed the Sword of the Flower Mountain. Our hero then gazed at his friend's broken leg with guilt in his eyes. Having noticed this, Lee Gaijeok asked our hero about his dream, leaving him intrigued. The boy explained how he was the child of the chief of the Flower Mountain sect, and how his goal was to reform the sect after ultimately taking his father's place as its head. Lee Gaijiok affirmed that he enrolled into university in order to strengthen the influence of the Flower Mountain sect within the Merem Alliance, before explaining how Lee Jimin was opposed to his vision, as their sect only prospered for itself, and he obliged him to endure hellish old-style training. With that, the young man, along with others of the same generation within his sect, began to learn the fighting style of the Wudang, making the boy more and more attached to his dream as he could learn the Merem Alliance's martial arts instead of the old ways of his sect. Yet all changed after using them on the Iron Sand Palm, who was rendered unaffected by them. Lee Gaijiok realized his own stupidity as he found his face being grabbed by the man in red, seeing how the sect of his father had been slowly crumbling under his nose. He and the others forgot their original fighting style as they were plunged into the martial arts of the Wudang. Lee Gaijiok began to regret turning down the teachings of his father, seeing how powerful he truly was. Only if he had listened to him, the boy speculated that he would have been able to at least properly fight back. The young man was ashamed of having disappointed his father. After hearing this, our hero was unable to utter a single word, as it made him recall how devastated the beaten-up Gaijiok looked back then. The boy then asked to be left alone. With that, the protagonist closed the door behind him. Taeyeon then began to think of his dream, as he only wanted to find his missing parent. They had no idea what he would do after accomplishing his goal. At the same time, a fight was occurring elsewhere. Loud banging noises could be heard, as a man was getting his skull stomped into a wall, before falling unconscious and defeated to the ground. His brutal adversary was no other than the mysterious masked figure. Just then, two other delinquents charged at him, and so the mask dodged the punch of the first, before sweeping him off his feet, making him fall to the ground. The mask then brutally smashed the man's face. With that, the second thug charged at him with a knife, daring him to evade his attack, which he easily did, before punching the man in the gut. With that, the man prepared his foot, before kicking the man in the face, with enough strength to send him flying into the wall. Just like that, the mask stood once again on ground stained with his unconscious enemies. The masked man then began to think of how odd this fight was, as more adversaries should have been present, when suddenly he found himself being flashed by a powerful light. Multiple trucks appeared, surrounding the man and illuminating him with their front lights. With that, multiple servants stood firm on the right and on the left. As he made his entrance, the vice leader of the assassin sect pointed out how the one abolishing his distribution lines fell for such a basic trap. Sebastian was thrilled to have finally met the masked man. An evil smile was formed on the blonde one's face as test subject 13 stood behind him, ready to obey his every demand. The giant weapon was then swung in the direction of the masked man, who managed to dodge the blade at the last moment. The mask was left alerted by all the heavy objects that were tossed into the air, and so he immediately dodged the falling items. The mask then realized that he would lose his life at the slightest contact with the giant blade. Just then, the beast resumed his attack, charging at him. Yet the mask was left unimpressed, seeing how the monster cruelly lacked speed, and so he dodged the upcoming strike, before using the giant sword as a trampoline in order to charge at the atrocity. With that, the mask began to bombard his opponent with a barrage of punches, before spinning on himself, in order to finish his combo with a powerful kick to the beast's neck. Yet despite all of his efforts, test subject number 13 was rendered unharmed. This shocked the mask, as the monster didn't even flinch. With that, the giant grabbed his head, before throwing him into the wall with his titan-like strength. Seeing this made the vice leader mock the mask for thinking that he could harm his secret weapon. The mysterious man quickly stood back on his feet. Just then, test subject number 13 threw his giant chain sword once again, leaving the one with the cracked mask alerted, and so he dodged at the last minute, before once again using the giant sword as his footing and charging at the beast one more time. The mask then dodged the giant's second strike, before firmly grabbing his chain, rolling around test subject number 13's neck and tightening its grip on it. With that, the mask pulled the chain downwards, ultimately breaking the monster's neck. None were able to believe it, yet Sebastian stood silent, before asking test subject number 13 to finish the termination of the mask. This left the startled mystery man in complete disbelief, as he found himself getting smashed into the ground with the beast's blade. With that, the mask was left in agonizing pain. Test subject number 13 then let out a fierce roar as he unbounded his neck from the chain, and so the atrocity began to consecutively smash his opponent with his giant blades. With that, the monster raised his sword high in the sky, ready to finish it all. But just as he was about to deliver the final blow, the masked man unleashed the ghostly spirit wave. This sudden twist shocked Sebastian, as the attack targeted his monster, ultimately blowing it away. With that, a bright red ascending beam appeared in the sky. The impact was so powerful that none of the spectators were able to see what just happened. This left the vice leader of the assassin sect in a surprised state, as the mask had mysteriously vanished. Rage began to fill Sebastian's eyes as the target used the confusion in order to escape. With that, the blonde one sent his servants after the masked man. But as the young man began to lament about the uselessness of his allies, a crack appeared on test subject number 13's mask. Shortly after, in a random alley, the thug was displeased by the fact that he only had one PM pill left, The smoker in yellow explained that this shortage was due to the Marine Patrol squad, while the one wearing glasses pointed out that there were some PM sellers in the nearby neighborhood. Yet the delinquent affirmed that it would be impossible to purchase from there as the prices had greatly increased after a great number of the Ancient Moon squad members were arrested. This made the first thug anxious, seeing how they had spent all the money they had stolen, as he wished for an easy target to appear. Just then, the group turned their attention to the beaten-up man in front of them. The masked one, who just fought death, realized that the 4-star mastery of the treasure of the Ghost King wasn't as useful as he might think. Just then, the 3 delinquents approached the wounded one with their bad intentions. The menacing one tried to use his murderous intent to chase the thugs away, making a chill run down the first man's spine. Seeing this, his 2 friends tried to persuade him to leave the injured man alone. With that, the man swallowed his last power-enhancing medicine pill, before charging at the mask in order to punish him for his arrogance despite his deplorable state. Yet, with one swing of his hand, the masked one completely erased the delinquent. The other 2, now covered in their friend's blood, were left paralyzed by the shock. With that, the mask had finally fallen off, as its owner, the bloodthirsty Jang Haku, recalled himself chasing the delinquents away. Just like that, the screams of his victims began to echo through the dark night. As the next day dawned, our hero was laying on a bench on the rooftop of the Marine Patrol squad, contemplating the sky. Taein began to think of his purpose, as he recalled the mental and physical pain that Gaijiuk had to endure. Our hero speculated that he was too weak to pursue any dream, regretting not being powerful enough to shield his friend from harm. This frustrated him as he was still far too weak. Just then, he began to recall the power of the ghosts. With that, our hero began to wish to master the tiniest bit of the Ghost King's great power, as he was about to remove his earring, when suddenly he recalled Hong's words asking him if he truly wished to go down the dark path of his grandfather. With that, a great fear filled our hero's heart, making him regain his common sense. Just then, Taein heard a sudden voice coming from behind him. The protagonist was startled to see the pervert that touched him while unconscious. The Black Demon King affirmed that it was spectating the boy as he seemed amusing and was about to remove his ghost jade. This shocked Taein as the mysterious redhead seemed to be aware of his mystic earring. With that, the lady cracked a malicious smile, as she asked the young Kang if he wanted her to teach him how to control the power of the Ghost King. Meanwhile, the 2 second years entered a crime scene. Kim Bo was intrigued as they were given a non-Miramis case, and when the leader pointed out how they arrived early, she claimed to have been held back. The man was left intrigued as the girl arrived without her junior. So Kim Bo explained how the dependable Haku excused himself due to a sudden sickness and asked not to be disturbed, making Jihu realize that despite appearances, the boy was still a normal person. With that, Seong pointed out how Gaijiuk still hadn't recovered before asking Jihu about the last trainee. The girl then recalled her partner and his supposed lover, before affirming that they had no use for someone as useless as him, leaving the both of them intrigued. With that, the team leader decided to lead the girls to the crime scene, and so both were left horrified, having stumbled upon 3 filled body bags and an entire alley painted in blood. This disgusted Kim Bo, who tried to get a hold of herself. Jigu had a hard time believing that a civilian fight resulted in such a butchery, and so the team leader unveiled one of the bodies, leaving the girl horrified, before affirming that only a Miramist could cause such carnage. This made Jigu speculate that the culprit was the mysterious man they were tracking down. The team leader then affirmed that he was unable to think of a motive for the mask's carnage, as he normally just beats up his victims or rarely kills them if they are Miramists. This made the terrified girls speculate that the mask caused this butchery for his own pleasure. Yet Jihu didn't believe that this was the case, as it was most likely killing for survival, leaving her utterly confused. At the same time, 2 figures were watching the crime scene from afar. The fat one was amazed by the picture quality and zoom of the phone, which made him wonder if his eye training was useless, earning him a yell from the muscle mountain. The fat one apologized to Jargle, who scolded him for getting distracted by such fancy gadgets despite being a guardian, before pointing out how this made the devotees lack discipline. The scolded one then asked Jargle if he perceived anything, and so the man activated his wolf eyes. Jargle explained that he urged to go back to Mongolia as Korea was filled with dark energy, making it hard to see anything, when suddenly, it all became clearer, as this darkness was just his pair of glasses that obstructed his vision. Jargle explained that their destination was the right one, as he carefully examined the scene with his great vision. The muscle mountain affirmed his statement to his ally, as the mark on the corpse's arms was the Mashamba's claws. Meanwhile, the young man was sitting in his dark room, holding a book that emitted a dark, menacing aura. The injured one then began to think of what he needed to exceed his level in the treasure of the Ghost King. Heku was well aware that he needed a blood offering, which is why he mercilessly killed the thug back then. The crazed genius was certain that his goal would soon be achieved. Heku then let out a sinister laugh as the evil power enveloped his body. Meanwhile, on the hospital's rooftop, Taeyeon couldn't be more annoyed, as the odd redhead stood right in front of him with a big smile. The hero then asked the girl to leave him alone, yet she decided to provoke him by asking him about the reason behind his great anger. The Black Demon King affirmed that she would make him learn how to master his dark power, but Taeyeon decided to play the ignorant. Our hero began to panic as the redhead was exactly what his mother asked him to stay away from. Just then, his phone began to ring. Taeyeon picked up without knowing who was calling him. The girl then asked about his location. Taeyeon, who was surprised to be called by his senior, claimed to be in his room inside the hospital, trying his best not to sound suspicious. With that, Zhu began to yell at our hero as she informed him that the team leader demanded all of them to be present at the auditorium at 6 in the afternoon. Before hanging up, Taeyeon began to panic, thinking that the girl was still troubled by yesterday's misunderstanding. With that, our hero began to yell at the redhead, demanding her to clearly explain the situation to Juhu, making her hope that he will let her instruct him if she does so. Meanwhile, a pink-haired girl watched from afar. Juhu looked with lifeless eyes at her lying partner hanging out with the girl from yesterday. That night at the assassin sect, the blonde one and the female scientist stood in front of an ominous machine. Sebastian then asked for an update on the situation. According to the girl, they were highly persuaded that this was an elemental key absorption technique and that they needed masters to test it on, as it was almost finished. The scientist was then left confused as the man asked her to prepare the machine. Sebastian decided to personally test it. Hearing this, the girl tried to reason with him, but was immediately shut down by a sudden pressure. Sebastian released his killing intent as the girl tried to oppose his will. With that, the shivering girl decided to submit herself to the vice leader's demand, and so it was activated. Suddenly, the room began to tremble as the chains were put in motion, lowering the giant cocoon to the ground. With that, the item began to emit a powerful blue light before revealing a man bound inside. Sebastian decided to check on the man, as this was none other than his father. The restrained man was covered in scars. His eyes were filled with a toxic emerald green-like energy. With that, father and son stood once again face to face. Yet the shackled man didn't utter a word. This made Sebastian call them out, as the man had surely something to tell his son. But as soon as the man opened his mouth, he began to insult his child, calling him cursed. With that, the vice leader let out a small laugh, followed by an injured silence. Sebastian then corrected his father, stating that he was truly cursed for having a father like him. A few years back, during the times of the original arena, a hand was placed on the amazed Sebastian's head, telling him to engrave this moment into his memory. Father affirmed to child that this arena was the blessing that allowed their sect to prosper. The young Sebastian was thrilled with the arrival of his father, when suddenly his attention was drawn elsewhere by a musical sound. As a majestic lady stood in the middle of the arena, Sebastian felt concerned, as this woman was his mother, seeing how emotionless and deprived of life her face was. Shortly after, the woman found herself getting savagely beaten. The culprit was none other than the father of her child, punishing her for trying to flee from him. The child, in tears, begged his father to leave his mother alone. But just then, Sebastian's head was grabbed. As he lifted him up, the man called him out for defending his mother despite her crime. The heinous one affirmed that Sebastian wasn't worthy of his sect, leaving him forever traumatized, before savagely throwing him away. The angry man then began to stomp on the woman's face, stating that her child was as disgraceful as her. With that, the leader of the assassin sect, with a dagger in his hand, decided to punish his wife in order to engrave this incident into her soul. Sebastian screamed in horror, fearing for his mother. After that, little Sebastian was left with his mother sitting in a wheelchair, surrounded by a puddle of her own blood. The man had mercilessly slashed the back of her feet, making her bleed at a crazy rate. Her whole body, as well as the hand she was holding, kept on shivering. The traumatized boy couldn't understand his mother's actions, yet confusion was replaced with shock as she apologized to him. The woman regretted not being able to carry on any longer in order to protect her young one. This left the boy devastated, as he desperately wanted his mother to stay by his side. The woman gave her child a gaze full of love and compassion, and so the mother hugged her child one last time, asking him to keep on surviving his monster of a father, even if it meant becoming as heartless as he is. With that, the woman drew her last breath. The shocked boy had a hard time comprehending it, but was filled with great anger and sorrow once he did. With that, the boy was determined to keep on living, even if it meant becoming like his father. Back to the present, where the fully grown Sebastian began to recall these unpleasant memories. The vice leader affirmed to the past head of the assassin sect that he would use his remains as foundations for the new sect that he would create. This led the chained man to burst out in laughter. The man was left amused by the arrogance of his child, before claiming that he would have disposed of him a long time ago if it weren't for the loss of his eldest child, before calling him out for betraying him when he should be thankful. With that, the previous leader affirmed to the one in charge that he had always been the inferior offspring. But Sebastian just smiled before asking for a specific item. The scientist immediately handed it over. The past leader seemed to have recognized her as the genius, illegitimate daughter of the Saxondang sect, who was forsaken as an outcast due to her background, before pointing out how fit she was to stand with his worthless son. Despite that, the scientist didn't utter a word in response. As he approached his father, the young man recalled his recent words about his betrayal. Just then, the naked one felt great pain. Sebastian considered his father's accusation to be meaningless, seeing how the old man had nothing on him. The vice leader then decided to reveal a funny truth to his father. As a demonic smile appeared on his face, a monstrous young man affirmed that the eldest son, whom his father loved, was now called test subject number 13, his loyal slave. This left the man filled with great anger, and so it began. Just like that, Sebastian began to absorb the previous leader's mana, as he let out a devious demonic laugh. The day after at the MPU, the Black Demon King introduced herself as her persona Sanhwa Na, a first-year exchange student from the Blackest Deceit sect. To the members of the Marine Patrol squad, Taeyeon couldn't believe it. The team leader then asked his men to treat the new recruit well, as she would be the temporary replacement of their injured comrade. Our shivering protagonist tried to explain the misunderstanding once again to his senior, but when he was met with her dark aura and her black, lifeless death stare, the young man decided to keep silent while trying to comprehend the fact that the redhead also attended the Marine Patrol squad. The lady then interrupted Seong Yu, who tried to pair her with Jita Park, before pointing out her finger at our startled hero, stating that she wished to team up with him. This shocked the leader and triggered Taeyeon's actual partner. Our hero immediately refused. Seong then stuck to him against his will. The team leader tried to affirm that Jita Park was her assigned partner, but the girl insisted on Taeyeon, claiming that they worked well together. Just then, someone called Seong. This was none other than an angry Jihu, affirming that the newcomer had no right to force her will onto them. The amused Black Demon King responded by stating that she wanted to be partnered with someone who stands on her level. Park Jita tried to calm the both of them down, while our hero was left completely shocked by his senior's reaction. With that, Ju promised to stop opposing the girl if she managed to overpower her. As she unsheathed her blade, Ju stated that if she failed to do so, Seong would have to retire herself from the Marine Patrol squad. Just like that, both female Miramists were ready to face each other off. This made the Black Demon King smile, as she was left amused by the challenge. Ju focused in silence, before charging at the new recruit, when suddenly their fight was interrupted by the team leader, who opposed Ju's unexpected behavior. The man then firmly affirmed that he wouldn't tolerate any more of this nonsense. With that, Ju calmly apologized. The team leader then redirected his remark to the transfer student. The Black Demon leader, who prepared a sneak riposte, was in fact trying to see what would happen if she provoked Jihu. Seong Yu then explained that despite understanding the desire of a transfer student to partner up with a familiar face, he couldn't pair up two first-year beginners. This relieved our hero, as it would finally give him the chance to clearly explain this situation to his senior. But just then, the team leader affirmed that he would make groups of 3, with the first being composed of Taeyeon, Jihu, and our protagonist. This shocked the second year, leaving her with great anger while being teased by her new junior. As she sheathed her katana, Ju warned Sunhwa to watch herself, as she might end up cutting her by mistake. With that, the girl left as Taeyeon followed her, trying to clear the misunderstanding. This gentle strength reminded the Black Demon King of Ju's father. Meanwhile, in an internet cafe, someone was searching up the term Miramist. The giant Mongolian addressed his fat friend Torka, as he doubted that their presence inside this cafe would help them find the fighter that knows the Mashama's martial arts. Yet Torka affirmed that looking around was an old and useless way. The fat one then asked Jargle to have faith in him, as technology was all they needed to locate their target. Just then, Jargle heard distant voices. 3 students were bullying a young man for making them lose their bet. The bullied one seemed beaten up and terrified. After calmly observing the situation, the foreigner decided to go against his master's will and intervene, but just then, the cheerful waitress arrived with his meal. Seeing how exquisite the bowl looked, and thinking for a brief moment, the hungry man decided to obey the will of his master before asking to see the rest of the menu. At the same time, a loud scream echoed elsewhere in the city. Taeyeon tried to apologize to his katana-wielding senior. The slash missed our hero by a few inches. Jihu then took a good look. Taeyeon was still trembling in fear. Jihu affirmed to her new junior that she didn't sense her when attacking. This annoyed the transfer student. Just then, Jihu felt a powerful punch coming her way. But the truth was that the target was in fact the thug that tried to take her from behind. The strike was so powerful that it sent the man flying into the wall. Ju stood immobilized as the thug was deeply driven into the wall. Shanhwa then apologized to her senior before advising her not to let her guard down. Seeing this made the terrified thugs quickly flee the scene. As he tried to signal the runners, our hero was left speechless by the tension between his 2 partners. With that, the terrified protagonist chose to handle the easiest problem and chase down the thugs. At the same time, at the internet cafe, Jargle showed deep focus. His partner looked worried. The fat one stated that they should exit the cafe, making the Muscle Mountain speculate that their target had been located. Just then, the waitress arrived with the additional plates requested. As the fit Mongolian decided to order another plate, the fat one was left annoyed, as all their money would soon be entirely spent at this rate. But just then, he noticed. The man decided to click on our hero's video. With that, he quickly grabbed his friend's attention, in order to show him the video of our hero using his ghostly spirit wave. The foreigners looked in shock. Jargle recognized the technique as the Mashama's breathing. Suddenly, the man was left alerted. Torka was surprised when he was asked to quickly stand up, seeing how their target wasn't far. Meanwhile, back at the chase scene, our rushing hero had lost the runners. But just then, he noticed a red stain on the ground. Blood was scattered in the entire alley, forming an ominous trail. The worried protagonist quickly followed it, only to find a horrifying scene where blood painted the floor and the walls. The mask stood there choking a man surrounded by corpses. The thug begged for his life, yet the masked man didn't listen, as his blood was mercilessly shed on the street. Taeyeon looked in disbelief. The killer began to laugh. The addict then began to demand more blood, as he aimed to slay one last victim. With that, the mask found himself reunited with our hero. Just like that, the angry Taein came across the faceless man from before. The two men stood once again face to face in an alley in the presence of three thugs. Rage slowly installed itself in our hero's heart, in front of the merciless mask now covered in blood. Just then, the entity urged the protagonist to end the mask. The young man had a hard time keeping his head clear as his heart began to suddenly pound, speculating that the presence of the mask was the reason behind this sudden sensation. And so it began. The mask and the mirror mist clashed with each other once again. Our hero quickly dodged the flying kick. Taein began to think of how the mask retained his unparalleled skills. As he launched the counterattack, the young man pointed out how he grew stronger as he managed to land a clean hit on his opponent. This left the mask shocked. With that, Taein perceived a weak spot in the vigilant's defense, when suddenly the voice urging him to strike with a lethal hit came back. The Ghost King wanted to make our hero slay his masked foe. With that, our hero desperately stopped his assault in order to try and silence the voice. Just then, he noticed a foot in front of him. The distracted protagonist was struck with a flying kick to the face, painfully knocking him off his feet. Seeing how the boy missed his chance due to uncertainty made the man think that Taein didn't possess the heart of a warrior. According to Haku, his opponent should keep it real, as someone like him couldn't possibly dream of rivaling him. And so they began to mercilessly trade blows. Taein struggled to understand, seeing how he was losing himself as the fight went on. The mask then charged our hero, but just as he was about to riposte, Taein was suddenly struck with a painful sensation once again, allowing the mask to land 2 clean hits on him. With that, the young Kang was left at the mercy of his opponent. Haku felt sorry for our hero as they weren't the same. Seeing how unlike him, he didn't believe in the presence of justice. Back then, the young man entered the scene, shocking everyone. Little boy couldn't believe his eyes, seeing how the leader of their sect had just ended the life of the boy's father and his own son. According to the old man, despite their blood bond to the man, he had to be terminated for the justice of the Wudang sect, the greatest of all for harming mirror mists with his uncontrollable he. The chief of the police begged his successor to comprehend the true meaning of their sect. It all seemed like nonsense to the devastated boy. Haku urged his brother to stop the sect leader, but to his surprise, Sonyu affirmed that their father was a traitor who dragged their sect's honor into the ground with lifeless eyes. The orphan couldn't believe it. As he gathered up his kind, the leader of the sect asked the boy to grant this man forgiveness. The members of the sect held down the young Haku, leaving him helpless as he watched the skull of his beloved father being crushed by their sect leader. 7 years had passed since that tragedy, with the young man aiming to destroy his grandfather's beloved justice. And so as he took on his new identity, the dark hero was determined to unveil Jinin's true face. Haku was certain that Taein's death would be his own fault for believing in something as meaningless as justice. With that, the protagonist was struck with a technique known as the One Punch that targeted his heart. With that, the ghost of Jade found itself shattering. As Taein regained his footing, the mask was left shocked, seeing how the young man had withstood his lethal one punch to the heart. But just then, the mask felt alerted. An ominous aura began to envelop our hero as he called out the fraud for his arrogance. With that, he was determined to take back what was truly his. And so the mirror mist began to move. Haku was shocked to see his rival with the power of the Ghost King dwelling inside of him. With that, he felt as if a giant was about to grab his face. Just like that, the mask's skull was slammed into the wall. The entity's grip was so powerful that it began to break Haku's mask. Just like that, the vigilant let out a tortured scream as Taein began to channel his ki. The rogue felt alerted as Taein was quickly absorbing his Ghost King aura. The possessed young man began to praise his victim for his resistance, when suddenly, the Ghost King felt alerted, before dodging a golden knife thrown in his direction. This item was filled with a burning bright kai, and so the chanting of the spell began. As more daggers were aligned on the ground, Taein found himself trapped in a magic circle. With that, the one-man Padma Hum was activated, pinning the host of the ghost to the ground. The protagonist found himself being crushed by an immeasurable pressure. With that, the foreigners had arrived at the scene. Haku began to wonder about the two men. Jargle feared that they didn't arrive on time. Before turning to check on the mask, who, to his shock, had suddenly vanished. The man's partner then tried to warn him. The muscle man dodged the host's powerful punch at the last moment. This made the foreigners fear that the young man was free from the shackles of justice, seeing how dark his presence was. Jargle then realized that this was the doing of the fallen Mashamba. Before asking his partner to prepare himself, Victorka was unsure, seeing how young the host was. According to the Tall One, the boy was beyond saving as he was rendered totally consumed by the Ghost King, leaving them no choice but to terminate him in order to prevent the return of the Phantom's massacres. With that, the now armed Jargle apologized to the possessed hero, affirming that his actions would not be driven by a personal motive. Meanwhile, the injured masked man managed to escape. Haku was still confused by his rival's mysterious power. The young man then began to recall how Taein easily overpowered him after unlocking the menacing aura. Haku realized that this might belong to the true ghost. With that, he cracked a smile. Just then, the injured Haku was spotted by a worried man who tried to help him. The crazed young man had a terrifying expression on his face that left the surprised man horrified, to the point where he began to fall down the stairs. With that, Haku concealed his face. The mask was determined to put his hands on the ghost power residing in Kang Taein. Meanwhile, in the alley, Chu was left annoyed by our hero, who didn't respond to his phone. But frustration was quickly replaced by irritation when her second junior claimed that she was worried about him, before pointing out how unusual it was to see the weakest of the two worry about the strongest. This claim greatly irritated the second year, when suddenly a man came rushing to the mirror mists asking to be rescued. The worried Jihu tried to understand what the panicked young man was running from. According to the boy, a killer was lurking nearby, leaving the both of them shocked. Jihu tried to comprehend what the young man meant, and so he revealed that his bullies were assaulted by a masked man. When suddenly a loud noise was heard, with that the second year asked the transfer student to stay close as this was an emergency. Just then the Black Demon King felt a strange Kai lurking nearby. The battle scene was covered in blood, rubble, and corpses. The girls had found a total butchery. Jihu was left completely shocked trying to understand the situation, when suddenly the sound of an incoming projectile caught her attention. Just then something hit the wall at an incredible speed. The fat foreigner was left amazed by this kind of raw strength. Before noticing the two feminine presences, Torka put on his best smile and asked them to flee the scene as he was unable to currently protect them as a figure was thrown in his direction, hitting the wall as well at an incredible speed. This was none other than the possessed hero trying to prevent a blade from piercing his heart. The confrontation between him and the muscle man was only getting fiercer. This shocked the senior as she didn't expect to see her junior in such a state. Taeyeon then let out a terrifying scream before kicking the man off him. Despite the impact, Jargle managed to regain hold of the ground. With that, the possessed host charged at the man, who charged back as he prepared his next strike. With that, the both of them clashed once again. Ju was still surprised by the crazed one being her partner, while Torka, still in the wall, was left worried about his partner. With that, Shangwon now remembered the two foreigners as the Sham Damak monks, who were also known as the monks of the Gobi Desert. This shocked the second year as the term Damak referred to the revolutionary palace, which was a sect outside of Murim, yet was still confused as to why the two of them were attacking our hero. Taeyeon then dodged every slash as Jargle asked him to die peacefully by his hands, before turning his weapon upside down while affirming that he should be terminated before being given the opportunity to harm anyone. But our hero quickly evaded the hit, before charging in with a mischievous punch, when suddenly the monk's blade found itself close to his chest. Just like that, our hero found himself injured. Taeyeon then began to bleed. This shocked the monk as the host saved himself by jumping away at the last second. Seeing this, Jihu decided to intervene, asking her new junior to help her stop the fight, when suddenly someone stopped her. Despite understanding her feelings, the monk affirmed that this wasn't a combat she should be a part of, asking her to have faith in him. This impressed the lady. With that, Torka, the double dragon of Damak, charged at the young man, only to be met with a quick punch to the face. Seeing how easily the man was knocked out was a disappointing surprise for the girl. With that, the monk on the brink of death began to think of how he only chose this fate due to Toya confessing her feelings. Back then, the girl was left devastated by Torka, who left her behind. As tears ran down her eyes, the man apologized, asking her to live on as he went on his way, leaving her devastated. Torka was unable to handle the girl's gluttony. Just then, tears began to run down his eyes, as he assumed that the fit silhouette in front of him was his beloved who had lost her extra weight. With that, Jargle tried to slap his delusional partner to reality. Jihu then asked her partner to stand down. The possessed host replied with a simple silence. The worried girl began to analyze him as usual, when suddenly he attacked her. Jargle was rendered too far to interfere in time. Jihu looked in disbelief. As the punch connected, tears began to run down her shocked eyes. Luckily, Sangmo had arrived just in time to block the Ghost King's attack. This shocked the monk as this one girl blocked the attack of the bloodlusted Ghost King, making him wonder about her identity. The Black Demon King truly wanted to avoid this situation, and yet her hands were now tied. Sangmo kept on her usual smile, as she quickly moved her head, in order to evade a punch to the face. The girl then evaded the second one, before readying herself to do a flick with her fingers. With that, the girl blasted the host of the Ghost King away with her mere fingers, allowing her to hurl him a few meters away. The amazed Jihu couldn't believe it, but was left intrigued when Jargle expressed his surprise to see the fallen Mashamba getting overwhelmed with such ease. The term Mashamba had piqued her interest, as it designated the evil dignity of the Revolutionary Palace, the oldest sect in the nations outside of Murim. But this Mashamba was in fact a disciple of the king from the Revolutionary Palace who recorded the king's understandings in secret of the Prajan arts, the fighting style of the king. Seeking enlightenment, the ruler of the Revolutionary Palace traveled the globe in order to face off against the strongest of foes, leading to the birth of the new heavenly Prajan arts. Yet these martial arts were so violent that the student ended up succumbing to their madness. Even after being slain by the king for his countless massacres, the man's violent spirit remained in this plane, harming anyone it came across. The entity, who was then named Mashamba, became tamed after the performance of ancient rituals. His records were then sealed in an underground library. According to the monk, this is common knowledge. Jargle then affirmed that the one they call Mashamba is referred to as Ghost in this region. This left Jihu beyond shocked, as she finally realized that her partner was a descendant of the Ghost King, which is why she was tasked with surveying him. The confused monk then resumed, by expressing his intrigue at seeing a simple girl toying with a powerful Ghost King. Meanwhile, the Black Demon King was irritated by the fact that the boy wasn't using any of the Ghost King's martial arts, making her think that he believes his power comes from screaming. This pitiful performance made her wonder about her next course of action, seeing how she wished for a proper fight. And Sir Sangwoo decided to give the host a little boost. With that, our hero blindly charged at her, but the quick one quickly evaded him. She then began to adjust his body by straightening his arm in order to better his ki output. With that, our hero's position was corrected, allowing him to land a devastating hit on the wall. This pleased the lady as it made it similar to the Ghost King's combat style. This shocked the other two Muramists, as the girl was helping out her opponent, making them realize that she was in fact teaching the host how to use his power. The violence of the fight made the monk realize that it would be even challenging for the king who leads their sect. This made Jargle speculate that this was the main reason for the sect leader asking them to be wary, since a month earlier in the Revolutionary Palace, the king warned his warriors of the guardians of the central regions as they were powerful. Yet Torka didn't take the warning seriously, as all these guardians once fell to the king. Jargle had to intervene in order to keep his friend from saying anything improper to the king. The sect leader affirmed that just like Torka, he was also once wrong, as the four heavenly rulers were equal to their pageant arts. The old man then decided to warn them in case they stumbled upon one to be wary of the red-headed lady. With that, Jargle realized that the little girl was in fact the Black Demon King. This shocked Jihu, as her junior turned out to be the leader of the Black Death sect. The red-headed lady was then left intrigued by our hero's struggles, leaving her shocked at the sight of internal wounds. This intrigued her, seeing how she didn't inflict such harm on him. The Black Demon King then noticed the boy feeling pain in his chest, and so she decided to poke him there in order to check her theory. Just then Taeyin began to spit blood, barfing up a great quantity on the ground. This made the disgusted sect leader realize how bad the veins around his heart were, making her wonder about the fighter who could have driven him into such a state. Seeing how the Ghost King was slowly devouring the host made her immediately realize that the fight would end soon. This left her disappointed, as it meant that her amusement had come to an end. With that, the master decided to restore the boy's consciousness, and so she channeled ki from her fingers to his heart, resulting in our hero being blown away by a powerful flash of light. Just then, a familiar voice affirmed that this strength belonged to the boy, as he opened up his eyes to find his beloved grandfather standing in front of him. The old man explained that this was Taeyin's inner power, as mind and body will exist in the same plane if our hero chooses the right path, making both evil and good ki, his and his only. These words resonated deep within the young man's soul. This made him realize that even the dark power of the Ghost King was his property. As a light appeared from his forehead, our hero began to ask for his power. Just then, mind and body found themselves linked with each other, resulting in a great flash of blue chi. Jihu and Jargle looked in disbelief while the Black Demon King feared the worst. With that, our hero had finally woken up and regained control. Meanwhile, the Black Death sect was under attack. One Miramis found herself tearing through the students of the strongest sect in the evil Muran faction. The blade was so quick that it allowed her user to easily overpower and slash the opposing men. The lady then gracefully landed on the ground, leaving 3 opponents standing in front of her. Just then, one of the 4 great guardians of the Black Death sect, Yeren Lee the Heavenly Dancer, was left confused by the attack, reminding the attacker that this was the base of their sect. Yet the Mirimis couldn't care less as she began to question the Heavenly Dancer about the item that she seeks. This confused Yeren Lee. This was none other than the Lady of the Wunan, who was here for the Black Demon Book. That same night at the Muran Police University, the chief of the police was informed that the criminal was able to flee. Song Yu affirmed this fact before adding that he should be soon captured due to his recognizable traits, intriguing the old man. Yu affirmed that their source was the monks of the Revolutionary Palace at the crime scene. This intrigued the chief of the police, as it meant that foreigners were meddling in the locals' affairs. The girl confirmed this fact before stating that they described the suspect as a masked man that disappeared after their arrival. Jargle also advised them to be wary of him, seeing how he also practiced the Mashama's martial arts. This shocked the sect leader. Seeing this made the team leader speculate that his grandfather had a suspect in mind, but the old man quickly brushed him off before dismissing the meeting. But as they walked away, the man called Jihu in order to ask her about her young partner. Jihu then began to recall how Taeyin had attacked her while possessed. It affirmed that he was behaving well as she exited the office. With that, the chief of the police began to theorize that the masked man was connected to the ghosts, since the intervention of the monks could only mean the reawakening of the Ghost King. Yet this theory implied that the Mashamba had 2 hosts. This intrigued the man, as the Ghost King could only have 1 vessel per generation. Just then, a knife came in, breaking his office's window. Jaden quickly caught the projectile, and to it was attached a message. The chief of the police quickly opened the paper. After reading it, the man was left shocked. A dark smile appeared on his face, as he found himself proud of his child who retrieved the Black Demon Book, expecting him to complete his part of the deal. With it, he began to crush the paper while thinking of how little this case was, as his wish was on the dawn of realization. Jin was certain that Wu Dang will soon unite all humanity under his wing. Meanwhile, our hero was exhausted inside the gymnasium with the Black Demon King. Taeyin found the task ahead to be quite challenging. Our hero discovered a new training method by asking Sangwoo to teach him how to control his Ghost King abilities. Yet her remarks on his pitiful performance left him quite irritated. The girl explained that despite being in control now, the boy could still succumb to the Ghost King later on. Taeyeon had to admit that the girl was the second most knowledgeable person on the Mashamba after his grandfather. He then began to recall how the Phantom took control of his body during his fight with the mask and how the monks gave him some time. Taeyeon also clearly remembered how he tried to harm Jihu. The great weapon, that is his power, will ultimately be turned against him, and so he asked Samuel for another performance. With that, the Demon King demonstrated once again the safest way to use Ki. The protagonist was determined to fully control the cursed power of the ghosts. With that, the Black Demon King began to move, executing swift and precise moves. In order to create a rope of Ki, Taeyeon began to quickly move, as he tried to follow the rope in order to escape the fate of his grandfather. And in order to do so, our hero had to be closer to his father. Meanwhile, at the basement of the Black Death sect, where dwelled the Black Demon Library, the greatest of all time, where a great part of the martial arts of the evil faction were stored, a massacre had occurred. The injured heavenly dancer suddenly heard a loud laugh approaching her. The well-dressed one began to mock the defeated sect as they were supposed to be the greatest of the evil faction. Aaron Lee recognized the man as Sebastian from the assassin sect. With that, the young man began to badmouth the Black Death sect and its students in front of the Great Guardian, stating that their master was bad at picking his students. This triggered the heavenly dancer, who threatened to shred Sebastian. Yet the merciless one just puts his boot in her face, before deeply stomping her skull into the ground. Sebastian affirmed that their sect was all bark and no bite before demanding for his questions to be answered. The vice leader of the assassin sect wanted to know if there existed other volumes of the Black Demon book and their locations. This shocked Yeren Lee, as only she and Ju's father were responsible for guarding these manuscripts, and yet Sebastian held one of the books in his hand. Sebastian aimed to achieve the key absorption technique of the Black Demon book, but seeing how some intel was missing, the young man quickly realized the presence of other volumes. With that, he demanded to know the second book's location. After hearing this, Yeren Lee apologized to her master, as the sword art that she faced, the sword art wielded by the blue-eyed lady, was the Shadow Stream sword of the Wudang. The heavenly dancer found herself amputated and defeated by a member of the Justice faction, who took her Black Demon book, and with the second one being held by Sebastian. The woman began to cry her weakness. With that, she asked her master not to forgive her failures, and so she grabbed the boy's foot. Yeren Lee was determined to sacrifice herself in order to correct her wrongs. This shocked Sebastian as he realized that the heavenly dancer was trying to kill herself and him in the process. And after one last smile, Yeren Lee used the explosive blood arts on Sebastian. That same night, the company building of the Black Death sect, the smartphone was thrown in frustration by a lady who began to curse the assassin sect. This was none other than Inaba, the vassal of the Great Guardian, who began regretting giving the Black Demon book to the assassin sect, seeing how they still didn't return it. The woman feared the reaction of Yahello regarding her crime, as he would certainly terminate her despite his dedication to the rules. But just as she began to wonder about her next move, her phone began to ring. Sebastian was trying to call her. The vice sect leader apologized to the anxious lady, who called him out for being calm despite not having returned the Black Demon book yet. The young man then affirmed that he would hand it out immediately despite the long wait. This relieved Inaba, who rushed to meet him in a location that she would appoint, but the young man affirmed that she wouldn't have to. Relief was then replaced by shock when Sebastian affirmed that he was about to arrive. Suddenly, a great explosion occurred. Inaba looked in disbelief. Just then, a man came barging into the room in order to signal an urgent matter. As the assassin sect had arrived, the vice leader was determined to dethrone the Black Death sect and take its place as the head of the evil Murim faction. The assassins stood ready with test subject number 13 in front of the building. Sebastian then recalled the unexpected gift. As he was wondering about the fate he shall impose on the rival sect. Earlier that night at the Black Demon Library, as Yeren Lee tried to sacrifice herself to kill Sebastian. After the young man realized her intentions, Yeren Lee let out one last smile. The vice leader didn't expect to be met with the explosive blood arts. If it weren't for his fundamental chi absorption technique, the young man wouldn't have come out unharmed. In fact, he found this experience to be helpful, as it was a small investment for the future. Due to a mysterious attacker who destroyed the house of the Black Death sect, Sebastian found himself at ease. As he ordered the start of the plan, the vice leader of the assassin sect found an opportunity to make his sect the head of the evil Murim faction. With that, the assassin charged at the Black Death sect members who wanted to keep on the fight until the Great Guardian arrives. And so a great battle broke out between the two sects. Test subject number 13 was easily overpowering his targets. His dark presence was enough to leave the members of the Black Death sect shivering out of fear. The mere presence of the atrocity greatly discouraged the men in their suits. This amused Sebastian, as his sect was taking orders from cowards like them, which made him wonder about the Great Guardian's whereabouts. With that, he ordered his beast to charge. After firmly planting its feet into the ground, the monster launched himself at the Black Death sect members. Seeing how he aimed for the door, the men urged someone to stop him. With that, one man jumped at the beast and placed one glass cut on its face. After asking the men to stand aside, the Murimist activated his mountain echo, allowing him to send test subject number 13 flying into the air. This shocks Sebastian. The beast quickly used his blades to stop his course, As he adjusted his watch, the man called out the young man for his arrogance. The great guardian of the Black Death sect, Yahello, asked the young man if he understood his crime. Yet Sebastian affirmed that he was in fact the victim of a crime committed by the Black Death sect, which confused the great guardian. The man affirmed that the Black Death sect attempted to kill him. This shocked Yahello, as the blonde man pulled out one of the Black Demon books as he asked for compensation. At the same time, meditation occurred at the Wudang Mountain. The Lady of the Wudang was trying to heal her injured abdomen, having overdone it in her last mission. As when facing the evil faction earlier, the Heavenly Dancer managed to hit her right before losing her arm, which was a proof of her title as one of the 4 great guardians. But as she began to think of how she was losing her youth, another presence found itself at the Wudang Mountain. Jargle felt a movement nearby, and so he quickly attacked using his blade. The explosion that followed caught the attention of the meditating woman. The muscle man rushed to see if he was able to hit his target. Just then, Torka found himself facing death, and while his friend was disappointed that this wasn't a boar, the angry one began to yell as he was almost sliced in half. With that, the both of them began to fight as Jargle had spent all their traveling expenses at the internet cafe, leaving them with nothing for food or shelter. After that, both calmed down. Torka was annoyed by his senior's stupidity as he was unable to clearly see due to hunger. But just then, he noticed something appealing at the base of the tree. The eating sounds intrigued Jargle. Confused, he asked Torka about the food he was consuming, which turned out to be a weird type of mushrooms. The monk recognized them as poisonous and urged his partner to spit them out. But Torka was already high, as he mistook his colleague for a talking cow. This illusion seemed delicious to Torka. With that, the fat one tried to bite the muscle man. A loud scream then echoed in the forest, as a monk began to run from a high cannibal. But just then, a presence took the high ground. Before slamming the fat monk's skull into the ground with her sheathed sword, and before Jargle could react, he found the tip of a sword close to his neck. The Lady of the Wudang demanded the both of them to unveil their identity. With that, silence reigned once again in the mountain, as the lady gave the man one of the most devious glares. This terrifying look made the monk speculate that this lady was a master. The lady then asked them one last time about their identity, but as the monk tried to explain, he was rudely interrupted by the sound of his own stomach. This confused the woman. Later that same night, in front of a small house, our hero's mother began to think of how the two of them stated that they were from Damak, making her wonder if the revolutionary palace was interfering with their region. The men claimed that they were forced to hunt since this region's food wasn't to their taste, and yet the both of them began to eat with a savage passion. Jargle then asked for kimchi, but the Lady of the Wudang didn't gratify him with an answer. After thinking for some time, the fat monk asked the other fat one about his theory on the woman's identity, seeing how powerful she was from her killing look and how she fed them before helping him with the poison. This made Jargle think of how he was unable to detect her until she unsheathed her blade. Torka then pointed out how the Lady of the Wudang was an older, emotionless woman who buys a lot of food just like his senior liked, making his face red. Seeing how the both of them were conversing, the lady ordered the monks to flee the mountain before they got themselves in danger. But as the fat one began to thank her, the fit one immediately stood up. The lady was then startled by the stiff man who affirmed that he was the type to repay his debts. With that, he asked her for her number, earning him to be teased by his junior. Just then, a small breeze occurred. The small breeze then turned into a fierce wind, which was noticed by the Lady of the Wudang. All then looked in the same direction. Jargle was left terrified, while the lady called the presence out for being a barbarian. A great evil presence appeared on the mountain, which was none other than the chief of the police. At the same time, the watch was being used as a brass knuckle. Sebastian managed to block it with his rapier, yet was still confused by his hurt ears. The great guardian then called out the young man for his boldness as he pulled out an empty glass, before dodging the rapier while throwing the cup into the air, affirming that the boy didn't think it through as he evaded his thrust. This triggered Sebastian, as the man was able to predict his attacks, and so by stepping on the glass, the man unleashed yet another mountain echo. The vice leader of the assassin sect never expected to be the victim of Yahello's power. Just then, the man called him out for losing his great confidence. Sebastian finally realized why his beast was harmed, as he was unaware of the great guardian's mastery over sound arts. Since the man's technique targets the inside, test subject number 13's impenetrable skin was rendered useless. Yahello then affirmed that it would be for the best if Sebastian just revealed how he got the Black Demon book in order to escape death by internal bleeding. But the boy affirmed that it was his right to be compensated for the wrong done to him. But as he explained how serious it is, seeing how he was attacked by one of the 4 great guardians, he was suddenly left alerted by the great guardian, who suddenly appeared behind him. The man then unleashed another mountain echo right next to the blonde swordsman. With that, the man had to summon 13 in order to assist him. Yet the great guardian wasn't impressed, as he easily evaded the 2 brothers' attacks. With that, the man threw his glass, and as it passed by Sebastian and his beast, the young man felt alerted, as the great guardian snapped his fingers, transferring his kai to the glass in the form of a sound wave, which caused a great explosion, damaging the blonde brute and his purple monster. The shock made the young man unable to see or hear for a short moment, and just as he regained his sight, he felt alerted as the great guardian stood right behind him. Jaho affirmed that the young man would be left as a lifeless body after one simple attack. With that, the man asked the invader about the traitor who gave him his sacred book, stating that if the answer pleases him, he will keep him alive as a sign of respect for the assassin's leader. Just then, the young man began to laugh. Sebastian then began to explain how humans are interesting creatures who always assume that they see the whole picture. Before asking the man if he truly believed that he won, the great guardian couldn't understand it at first, when suddenly he found his heart being pierced by a blade from the back. The assassin with a dark expression affirmed that humans will always be betrayed by someone they trust. The man then turned to see the face of the one who betrayed him, and was left utterly shocked, as the traitor was none other than his own vassal Inaba. With that, the glass fell to the ground and shattered. The betrayed great guardian fell to his knees, unable to believe who was the traitor. Inaba then affirmed that he was a stressful one. The vassal explained how she had to eliminate him first before he uncovered her and executed her for her crimes. This left the dying one confused as he demanded the reason behind her betrayal. Sebastian decided to explain, stating that the great guardian wasn't fit to be the leader of his sect in the upcoming future. Inaba explained that he was too old and that they needed a young leader. The angered Yahello was filled with anger as he asked the young man if he wished to destroy the peace that he, his master, and the rest worked so hard to establish. This shocked the vice leader of the assassin sect. As for him, this peace was just a mere illusion created by them submitting to the Mirim Alliance. According to Sebastian, the evil faction was formed to oppose the Mirim Alliance, not to submit to it. This angered the great guardian, when he suddenly began to cough blood, as he was now in Sebastian's hands, who affirmed with the darkest of smiles that he would use the man's key when facing his master. And so began the absorption. Yahello was overwhelmed by great pain. In his last moment, the man began to think of his daughter and his master, and how he would no longer be able to protect them. The sucked-out man spent his last second feeling sorry for the two most important women in his life. With that, the crazed maniac began to reflect on the great power now circulating in his body. The villain was left thrilled as the power of the infamous great guardian was now his and his alone. None of the witnessing Black Death sect members were able to believe it, as this only meant one thing. Just then, a lady joined her hands. Inaba congratulated Sebastian on becoming the new lord of the Black Death sect. The members of the defeated sect were all shocked. Just like that, the men of the enemy sect became his. Sebastian was left shocked, before cracking a mischievous smile, followed by an evil laugh. Meanwhile, back at the gymnasium where our hero was getting trained, a great surge of energy came out of the young man. This shocked the Black Demon King, as the Ghost King appeared right in front of her eyes. Taeyin channeled all of his focus on his core, when suddenly blood came out of his nose. The young man couldn't understand why this was happening, so Shamwan explained that this was a sign of the training being a success, before recalling how the hero suffered a near-death experience every time he used his powers, which the young man confirmed as he recalled the two unpleasant incidents. According to the Black Demon King, the powers of the Ghost King are just a late type of innate internal energy, which means that every time used, it relied on the very life energy of the user. With that, the leader of the Black Death sect affirmed how formidable it is that Taeyin survived after so much pain, seeing how the average person would have already been dead. Yet due to his training, the hero was now a host capable of withstanding the energy, seeing how it was a method that regular people couldn't imagine or copy. The lady also pointed out how the boy now possessed an extra energy storage for the power of the Ghost King. This shocked the hero. Despite it being the power of the evilest entity there is, Taeyin could finally feel the immense power residing within his body as if two pivotal powers rotated within one point. But just as the Black Demon King explained how the young man was only using 50% of his power and how he should lose his earring next, something suddenly barged through the wall. This shocked our hero and his instructor. This intruder turned out to be a man in a pitiful state. The Black Demon King couldn't believe her eyes, as this was Bojang Siak in a pitiful state. Shortly after, the lady began to heal the man, who tried his best to explain the situation to his master. This left our hero confused as the story revolved around a master and betrayal, when suddenly someone called him. This was Shangwan affirming that their lesson was complete and that he should take Bojang Siak to the hospital in order to show his gratitude for all she offered him. Despite the confusion, Taeyin agreed, and with that, the master decided to tell him one last thing. The Black Demon King explained that the power of the Ghost King wasn't just about combat. With that, the master went on her way. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the Black Death sect, the servants stood firm. Their master asked his victim to stop resisting, as he just wanted to know the location of the Black Demon King. The tied-up man was none other than the last great guardian of the fallen sect. Yeongdum Jin was left in great pain, yet he decided to stand firm as he spat in the young man's face. This filled Sebastian with monstrous anger. With that, the Iron Sand Palm was bombarded with countless punches. Sebastian kept on hitting him with no mercy. The weather began to change. The vice sect leader was getting ready to end the resisting prisoner, and after affirming that Yeongdum Jin was a repulsive man, Sebastian decided to land the last blow, when suddenly lightning illuminated the sky. The young man found himself paralyzed, as a small foot had redirected his leg in order to save the man in red. A powerful presence had entered the scene. The lady then pointed out how beaten up Yeongdum Jin was. Despite the pain, the man joined his hands in order to salute his master. With that, the man lost consciousness. Seeing this, the Black Demon King released her immense energy, creating an immense tornado in the sky. And while the servants were almost blown away, Sebastian smiled at the sight of the appetizing and fierce K. The master affirmed that she would punish the assassins for their attack on their sect by taking their lives. Long ago, the lady stood watching a mansion burning, when suddenly someone called her by the young Yahello and the rest of the yet to become the 4 great guardians who wanted to work for her. The lady then asked her servants about the children, so the man explained how they were test subjects before asking his master about their fate. After taking a good look at them, the Black Demon King demanded to send them back to their parents, when suddenly someone affirmed that they had nowhere to go, as their parents had sold them, which meant that they would suffer and be sold once again if placed under their care. The young Yahello affirmed that these orphans were like brothers and sisters to him, and meant more to him than those who sold him, before affirming that they would choose death over separation. The Black Demon King looked in disbelief, when suddenly something held her. The youngest boy had hugged her leg. The innocent young Byum Jin called the leader of the Black Death sect Mom. This moved the heart of the old one, drawing an innocent smile on her face. Now the Black Demon King was determined to recover her and her children's home. The master of the Black Death sect had returned to her domain. Just seeing her made the men try to flee the scene, leaving their supposed new leader behind. The blonde young man couldn't understand their cowardice, as they were an entire army that outnumbered 1 human. As she prepared an attack, the lady commended them for their cleverness, but also affirmed that their fate was already sealed as she launched her strike. With that, a wave made out of the ground was launched in their direction. Its size became monstrous as it reached the traitors. The power of the Black Demon King left the young man utterly shocked, as a flying bullet should be as strong as an arrow at best. Meanwhile, his servants were thrown into panic. The attack then landed, damaging a large area. As he was being shielded with his beast's blade, the young man commended her power as it truly belonged to one of the 4 kings, before stating that those under her command could never rival her. As he affirmed that the 4 great guardians possessed weak energy, the maniac affirmed that he had the power to make the Black Death sect greater than it ever was, and despite acknowledging the beauty of the goal, the Black Demon King, who appeared right in front of the young man, affirmed that some dreams were never meant to become real. Just like that, the lady activated her flying bullet right on the boy's face. With that, Sebastian was blasted away. A chain was then thrown his way, and with a pull of the purple beast, the swordsman changed his course as he charged at the Black Demon King. Yet this tactic seemed pathetic to her, as she used the key telekinesis incarnation to plant the blade into the ground. Sebastian, who evaded it at the last moment, prepared himself to take the old master from the side. With that, the young man unleashed a crushing thrust. Just then, the Black Demon King quickly turned the situation, affirmed that his efforts were fruitless. Stating this, 13 quickly charged in order to use his body and weapon to shield his master from the Black Demon King's blister steel kai. The technique was so powerful that the monster found his weapon suddenly crumbling within his own hand. With that, the lady decided to take care of the nuisance that was the purple beast. The Black Demon King then used her fundamental kai absorption technique in order to suck out test subject number 13's energy. Yet the master was left shocked, as the biological weapon wasn't affected by her technique. Suddenly, a glass cup was thrown her way. As it began to explode, the shocked mother recognized this technique as the one used by the oldest of her 4 great guardians. Only this time it was used by the vice leader of the assassin sect. This resulted in a great chaotic explosion to occur. The master of the Black Death sect managed to escape it unharmed. Wrath filled her eyes as the man had used a familiar technique, a move that belonged to the great guardian, who once asked to rest assured as he takes care of the Black Death sect. Sebastian, who replicated the man's exact gesture, explained how he tried to use the fighting styles of Jaho, seeing how he stole his key despite still lacking mastery over them. With that, the Black Demon King asked the young man about him knowing the kai stealing technique, but Sebastian claimed it to be obvious. This left the lady shocked, as the maniac pulled out one of her books and revealed the presence of a traitor among the Black Death sect that helped him take the book. Seeing this, the triggered lady charged him in the blink of an eye, when suddenly she found herself being stopped in the middle of the air. The purple monster used all of his strength to bind the woman's leg with his chain in order to restrain her movements. Just then, the master of the Black Death sect found herself hit. The young man had dreamed of this exact moment. Sebastian was about to put his hands on the master's powerful key, and so he began the absorption, when suddenly he was violently grabbed by the neck. The blonde brute was now at the mercy of the Black Demon King, who called him out for his disrespectful behavior despite using a pale imitation of her fundamental kai absorption technique. This made the boy realize that he would be needing the other tome of the Black Demon book. As she lifted him off the ground, the lady asked the vice leader of the assassin sect about the crimes he committed with his lack of respect. With that, she mercilessly slammed him into the wall. As hate filled her soul, the master affirmed that she would forever hold a grudge against the attacker. Sebastian began to scream in agonizing pain as he found himself being mercilessly dragged through the wall. After executing a jump that broke the sound barrier, the Black Demon King found herself high in the air holding the assassin. But as she began to recall her beloved guardian, a mysterious attacker charged at her. With that, a great explosion occurred once again. The Black Demon King managed to land on her feet. The lady recognized the sword style that just injured her face. Its user carefully placed Sebastian on the ground, as this was none other than his father, the head of the assassin sect. A new opponent had appeared. Sebastian had once again fraught death. The scientist apologized for her delayed arrival as the brainwashing took longer than expected. Yet the young man affirmed that brainwashing had nothing to do with it. The new weapon of the assassin sect stood firm. Sebastian affirmed that the father would naturally come to aid his child. Back then, the leader of the Black Death sect affirmed that the man's craziness was pointed out by the weapon that he wields. Luva Rublev, the head of the assassin sect, was a crazy man, as his liquor was made from the victors of his arena, and he had numerous wives, and no one knew when his chaos would end. Yet his arrogant look shouldn't be the object of assumption. As he drew his broken sword, the lady began to think of how invisible threats were the most lethal. With that, a heartless strike was unleashed, leaving the Black Demon King alerted. Just like that, the target was hit. As he sheathed his broken blade, the Black Demon King was split in half, or so it was thought. The shocked young man realized that this was an afterimage. The master of the Black Death sect affirmed that the leader of the assassins was the only one to have reached such a high level of Keyblade, and yet, as she stood above him, the lady affirmed that a mere toy with no free will had no chances against her. Luva tried to quickly move, but it was too late as the Black Demon King unleashed her Blister Steel Kai. The attack was so powerful that it was enough to slam the leader of the assassin sect deeply into the ground. This only made it more difficult for his son. Despite having heard of Luva vanishing after having his son, the master could have never thought that he ended up as the controlled slave of his own child. This made her call him out on his hateful lack of honor, but Sebastian affirmed that the strongest Miramist in the Eagle faction had no right to judge them, as this is what it always wanted to install. Before claiming that the old master keeping the young look of her rejuvenation only strengthened his argument, the Black Demon King listened in silence. As Sebastian asked her about those who should be standing by her side, this made her have a painful realization. Seeing this, Sebastian affirmed that her students only followed her for her overwhelming strength, and that all of them urged for freedom after being bound by the will of the strongest. The maniac stated that this was his main reason for wanting to reform the Black Death sect into a powerful and free organization. A crazed smile appeared on his face as he affirmed that he wanted to restore the age of the Ghost King. After hearing this, the lady began to wonder when was the last time this occurred. Sebastian affirmed that the era of the lady was over, as he charged at her alongside his brother and father. It had been a long time since the Black Demon King completely despised someone, and so she began to pull out a weapon from her chest, known as the Sword of the Black Heart, as it had been a long time since she felt the urge to kill an adversary. With that, the sound barrier was broken once again, and so the lady took on her three powerful opponents. The Black Demon King then unleashed a devastating slash that inflicted great destruction. Just then, test subject number 13 jumped into the air and tried to smash the powerful master with both his legs, only for her to easily dodge. With that, she grabbed the chain and kicked the leg, allowing her to spin the monstrosity into the air. With that, the lady used her energy weapon in order to use her uppercut strike, allowing her to finally pierce through the beast's skin. 13 screamed in great pain. With that, the Black Demon King decided to try her technique once again. Just like that, the giant monster found himself the victim of the fundamental Kai absorption technique, when suddenly a chill ran down her spine. The Black Demon King evaded a fatal rapier thrust to the head. Sebastian was then left shocked when the lady kicked his blade and snapped it with her own leg. Sebastian was now weaponless. It was able to block the Black Heart's stab with his bare hand, and after letting out a great devoted scream, the young man drove his hand to the base of the sword. This made her realize that the vice leader of the assassin sect planned to lose his hand in order to achieve victory. As he firmly trapped the lady's hand, Sebastian revealed that he still hadn't mastered half of the Black Death sect techniques, and with an evil crazed smile, he affirmed that for the first time nothing would submit to the old master's will. She then suddenly noticed the puppet of the leader charging at her from behind her. With that, Sebastian asked her to choose the hand she wished to be killed by. This left the Black Demon King no other choice. After a small moment of reflecting in silence, the master activated her black hole. With that, a massive sphere of black mass appeared, a pitch-black power like none before enlightened the sky. With that, a massive hole appeared where the headquarters of the Black Death sect used to be. Only the Black Demon King remained standing in the middle. The biological weapons had fallen, and so did their master. With that, the lady tried to catch back her breath, as this battle left her exhausted physically and mentally. With that, she quickly jumped off the ground and landed nearby, after affirming to her youngest guardian that all had been terminated. Before asking him to return home with her, the Iron Sand Palm quickly stood up and stabbed his master with his bare hand. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.